to be discussing that coming up in the next segment. There's a war coming, says top Marine Corps general, warns U.S. troops. This is on INFOWARS.com today, ladies and gentlemen. Author, who admittedly does meet with the CIA, director of CIA, told me it's war with North Korea within 12 weeks, and that was in November, now being released because people have been authorized to basically warn North Korea through public channels. Continuing, report, EU planning own Olympic team to weaken national pride. I first saw them propose this 6 years ago. It's now being announced, ladies and gentlemen, along with an EU army. You can't even have a team named after your nationalism. This is globalism in its essence. Oh, and look, I didn't cover this last week when they just said it was a terrible idea and that I was a bad person and told a bunch of lies about me. But now the Chicago Tribune and others are saying Alex Jones should be banned from Chicago radio. That's right. Beyond Soviet, beyond communist Chinese, they just outright say, ban Alex Jones from the radio because I'm a Sandy Hook denier. Now, let me explain. If I wanted to deny that Sandy Hook ever took place, it's my right to do it. We've held debates here. A lot of our audience doesn't buy the official story. There are major anomalies. But again, they threw babies out of incubators in 1990, they claimed. Their brains were stomped out. Turned out it was all a PR firm, all a lie. If I heard about babies thrown out of incubators again to start a war, I would have to question the story until it was verified or until it was debunked. That doesn't mean if it came out that babies were indeed killed that I am against the babies. I just don't trust known liars like CNN that spearheaded that lie along with the Democrats and Republicans in Congress. So again, Christian Science Monitor, when contemplating war, beware of babies in incubators. Oh, my God. The Christian Science Monitor doesn't care about babies. They don't care about babies that have their brains bashed out. No, they're questioning known liars. So, again, the Democrats have gone from denying censorship to openly admitting their plans for draconian censorship they were planning this year if Hillary would have gotten in. That's a big deal. And that's why when you spread the videos and spread the articles and spread live links to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the live video feeds, you reach new people. Our AM and FM is wonderful, but we mainly reach a conservative libertarian audience there, and that's about 70% of our audience, actually. The big secret is AM and FM radio. It's gigantic. 3-4 million a day tune in, over 200 stations now. That said, what really matters is reaching the new people, the people that have only seen the cliches, the lies about INFOWARS, where the globalists have pre-demonized us and force-feed disinfo about us on Google, Facebook, and Twitter. It's only you that can bypass that. So that's coming up. Also, Trump defies media doubters by signing tax cut bill before Christmas. He was forced to do it before Christmas because they said if he wasn't going to sign it. And also, Trump tears into Golden Showers dossier, calling crooked Hillary pile of garbage and the FBI tainted. And the big news, we have more Somalis striking again. U.S. woman stabbed 14 times by Somali migrant. Media go dark. We love our Somalis. We love our Muslims too. We love our Somalis. We love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good. Oh, they're so sweet. And then I'm going to get into the media spinning it and demonizing that only the rich get money from this tax cut. I'm going to give you the secret of that and more. Straight ahead, I'm Alex Jones. Spread the word. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it is incredibly hard to believe that we are already in the last 3.5, 4 days of 2017. It is Wednesday, December 27th, 2017. We're going to be live here for the next 4 hours with this broadcast. And then we're going to have Rob Dew and others hosting for Owen Schroyer. But Owen Schroyer isn't on vacation. He's going to be hosting the rest of this transmission coming up in about 30 minutes. But there's so much huge breaking news, I had to come in first today because there's just so much unfolding. But, of course, Owen will do an excellent job as well. Where to begin? Let me get into the situation with North Korea first. And just let the audience know that I don't want war with North Korea. Only an insane person would want that because it could easily draw in Russia and China. But I wanted to give you Trump's calculus on this because it's been left a bit nebulous in the media as to why this is happening. It's bigger than North Korea. And the threat of North Korea is obviously a lot bigger than North Korea. And it's beyond North Korea basically already having ICBMs that can hit U.S. territories and clearly hit the U.S. West Coast, delivering payloads. Evidence shows it probably can't deliver payloads to the central or eastern areas of the United States with those payloads coming in back into the atmosphere with their single warhead technology undisturbed. The real reason this is happening is that under global strategic tension, a Zbigniew doctrine, which was an expansion of the David Rockefeller UN doctrine of creating a destabilized world, playing countries off against each other, deindustrializing the nations, and then using the crisis of war or the threat of war to consolidate power in the hands of the multinational corporations and their governmental combined control arms like the UN, like the IMF, the World Bank, and now the TPP. And that's their admitted globalist plan. America is to be a military reservation with only military forces, just like the classic 1970s film Rollerball kind of created a Hollywood-style cosmology to explain their system, where you have the energy sector, and then you have the weapons sector, and you have the technology sector, and you've got but then if you're a technology sector, you have to farm that out evenly so no one ever gets a toehold on the other, and so war becomes obsolete. But from the beginning, globalism was set up to actually cause war against the poor, war against the nation state, war against the family, war against the individual, and was a con. It was a deceptive fraud. We have the former heads of the Davos Group and others going public saying globalism was a fraud, globalism was a lie, globalism is a giant authoritarianism. And so MacArthur in July of 1953 was relieved of command by then President Harry S. Truman for refusing to let the communist Chinese come in and overwhelm and kill our troops there at the Yalu River. 3 million came in. We'd already been fighting several million Chinese with maybe 1/10 the force and kicking their butt. So in came the Chinese and human wave attacks. And MacArthur, before they ever got nukes, before they ever took over the region, said, we got to take them out now. We got to deal with the communists now. And he was withdrawn from command. Old soldiers never die. They just fade away. And that was the beginning of modern globalism as we see it now. And the strategic tension was created, and North Korea was used as a set piece to prop up China, prop up communism, menace Japan, and control the whole area. Now, that said, I don't want to have a war with North Korea, but they've now been given the missile secrets by the Clintons and the globalists and now the communist Chinese. They've been given the delivery systems as a pretext to be the trigger for a future China war with the U.S. And that's a fact. China is planning that. And they think Russia's going to be drug in. Trump wants to do a behind-the-scenes deal to bring Russia in. And there have been previous deals behind the scenes with Nixon and others where the Russians wanted to do a preemptive strike. This also happened under Eisenhower on the Chinese. And the U.S. wanted to do a strike as well, back and forth. And then both sides would renege when it came down to the 11th hour to launch the preemptive strike together against China. So Russia doesn't like China even more than it doesn't like the U.S. because China is right on its doorstep and has been a historic problem in many cases. And you can look all this up. This has happened throughout history. So North Korea has been put there by the globalist as a detonator. And I understand their people are starving, and I understand it's horrible, and I understand these big sanctions only hurt them mainly, and I don't like it. But I'm telling you the strategic thinking of President Trump in all of this is that we have to look strong because the globalists, the CFR that worked for the communist Chinese hinted at this during the campaign, and then once the president was president-elect, that they were going to use North Korea blustering and rolling out its new weapon systems that it had been keeping quiet to basically embarrass Trump and to create a crisis for Trump that he would have to back down from, thus blunting U.S. power globally so that we again could be balkanized politically and not be the dominant world unipolar power. And I get Putin wants a bipolar power and all that, and so do I. I don't want the U.S. to be the world empire. But the point is the globalists are the world empire right now, playing off the three major power blocks, and they want to be able to bring the United States into check and checkmate, if need be, with the North Korean detonators. So you're getting the real briefings the president's gotten, and you're getting the real strategic thinking behind the whole ball of wax. And so by bringing this war to the fore now, against China, making Russia stand down, this will encircle and geopolitically break China's back as it attempts to roll out a global takeover from Latin America to Eastern Europe to much of Africa, which China is doing, via a program where it double-crossed the United States behind the scenes politically with spies and strategic influence and financial influence with over 10,000 front companies inside the United States. So this is all about China. And it's about forcing Russia into a new alliance with the United States that Trump had already planned and been setting up with General Flynn strategically because Russia's Christian, anti-globalist, and, of course, anti-radical Islam. And Putin was beginning to orbit into that, believing it could happen, but Trump has been partially blocked by the neocons, by the Democrats, by the Brzezinskyites, by the globalists into that strategic program. And so right now, Trump is battling with the globalists in a game of super brinksmanship with North Korea, with the U.S. prepared to strike by February. They're all telegraphing that, and they mean it. They're go, go, go. They're going to go. It's not a bluff. If Russia doesn't stand down and side with us, then China will roll over. North Korea will be fully isolated, forced to sue for peace, and there can be some type of new armistice and a program to begin merging in the next decade, the North and the South, and ending strategic crisis, ending strategic pressure, ending the so-called system of balkanization. Strategic tension is the proper term, but they've got a lot of subterms to it. So that's where this is. This is Trump saying, we're not going to back both sides anymore. We're not going to back radical Islam. We're not going to fund civil wars. We're not going to do this. The problem is McMaster and others are globalists. They're still working behind the scenes trying to sabotage that because Trump's still working off a plan that others in the Pentagon that are patriots and General Flynn and General Jones and others had developed that Trump bought into during the campaign. But he's being sabotaged. And because of that, I don't think it's safe to play this brinksmanship with China and Russia when especially we've got traitors within our midst and our command and control systems that are communist Chinese agents. Because the infiltration is not Russian. And if it was Russian, I'd say it all day and, you know, say to hell with Russia. Russia can barely fend off the globalists and is trying to reindustrialize and build its population and stabilize. Russia is in a stabilization phase. The globalists are mad because they can't get control of it right now, just like they want control of the U.S. back and only have partial control right now. So that's the real strategic global lay of the land, ladies and gentlemen. That's the breakdown of this entire system as it stands right now. And I think we should have a real discussion about this. We'll be right back. There have been more Somali stabbings in the U.S.
Gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims, oh, they're so good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. I am your host, Alex Jones. Owen Schroyer is coming up again live in the next segment. Now, we're not just seeing globalism get rid of the borders. We're not just seeing threats by the unelected EU that masqueraded as a trade deal and is now a dictatorship. We're not just seeing them threaten 100,000 euro fines against Poland, Hungary, and others if they don't accept over 1 million Islamic, quote, migrants, invaders, every year. No. We first heard about this 6 years ago, and now the EU is openly debating it in closed sessions, and members of the EU Parliament, that's ceremonial, have now learned of it, and UKIP is reporting on it. Report EU planning own Olympic team to weaken national pride, because whether it's Spain or Germany or France, they cannot allow people to have their own teams. Now, again, they'd announced this years ago for decades out in the future. Now they're talking about it coming up in just the next few years. EU planning own Olympic team to weaken national pride. Superstate plotting unified team for anniversary of Hitler's Berlin Games. European Union officials are reportedly trying to form an EU Olympic team for the 100th anniversary of the 1936 Berlin Games that will devalue European national sovereignty. Bill Etheridge, representative of UKIP's EU Parliament, broke the news to the Daily Express, revealing that covert discussions are being held amongst EU officials behind closed doors. There have been quite a lot of conversations about it among the members of Parliament, and it was being taken quite seriously by some of them. He said they're using the word solidarity, which tends to be code word for even closer union. Yeah, they're talking about an EU military invading countries if they try to pull out, which speaks to their plan to create a United States of Europe. Now, continuing, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of globalism, let's get to this report that I mentioned earlier. This is out of WorldNetDaily.com. U.S. woman stabbed 14 times by Somali migrant, media go dark. I see in local news every couple of days where a Somali stabs somebody, because that's the culture. Look at somebody wrong, they just stab you. Women are seen as animals, or sold on slave blocks, sold on slave auctions, and then Comedy Central makes jokes and goes, "What are slave blocks?" Very, very sick people. Morgan Everson was stabbed 14 times by a Somali man while walking home from December 13th. Yeah, there's a lot of reports out there, too. In Germany, they think dogs are unclean. The Somalis do. They always call them Germans. They go, German man stabbed a German woman, and it's some invading foreigner. Morgan Everson was walking home in downtown Minneapolis about 8:30 p.m. on December 13th when a black man got out of his car, chased her down, tackled, and stabbed her repeatedly. The feisty 26-year-old frantically fought back because she's racist, kicking, scratching, and screaming for help. At some point, neighbors heard her screams, came to help. Her attacker, described as a Somali man, in his early 20s, about 5'7", with a slight build and wearing gray stone wash jeans, ran away. And then it goes on to the media cover-up. And I think it shouldn't be reported. I agree. I think it's racist. She didn't die. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. Here's another one. ABC News. Woman stabbed multiple times in Uptown on walk home from work. But again, you're not going to find out that it was another one of the cultural enrichment folks that did it. Now, let me hit this article because this is really important. Trump signed the tax bill early, and as he said in the speech, he had to because they were saying that it was all a hoax. He wasn't going to sign it. Trump defies media doubters by signing tax bill before Christmas. I didn't want to, folks, but again, they said I wasn't keeping my promise. Supposed to sign it in January. Now, let's move on to this. They've got articles. It's on INFOWARS.com. Bloomberg, world's wealthiest became $1 trillion richer in 2017. Billionaires can thank Trump for explosion in wealth. But see, the globalists, they said they don't want even exploding wealth for themselves. They want our wealth to go down. That makes their wealth worth even more. They want austerity. They want total control. And so they spin it like, oh, look, the rich people got richer. Yeah, off the stock market, the new jobs, the industry. But that's how we get more jobs and more factories. If we have rich people that invest back in the culture and aren't austerity brokers of eugenics to consolidate wealth, which is Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and all of their own admissions. So again, people are saying, well, it's only a few $1,000 tax cut for the average person. And then if you have kids, it's $2,000 extra per child. So that's like $4,000 now. And okay, the corporate tax goes from 38.9 down to 20 or whatever. China's still 15. It's not about what you just get right up front, and even though it's substantive, or the 50-plus companies giving extra bonuses because of it. It's about the fact that it gets the economy going even more, creates a boom, which always drives up wages. Not with fake minimum wage hikes that only make jobs contract in a bad economy, but booming economies when wages go up systemically, historically. So they know this, and they've been trying to fix the economy and hold the country underwater, and the globalists admit that. So Trump's job's really easy. If he can remove the artificial globalist tariffs, like us having the highest corporate taxes in the world, which we've now done, look at the stock market already exploding. Look at retail sales, the best in decades, despite Amazon. Things are coming back, and they keep going, well, somebody making $60,000 a year only gets $1,000 extra, and blah, blah, blah. It's the jobs coming back. It's the companies being able to move here that want to be here, but had to leave because the globalists put in internal tariffs in the United States designed to ship our jobs overseas and bring us to heel. And they're in a battle to implode the economy. They're in a battle to stop Trump. So that's why I'm so vitriolic in defense of the president, because you know a man by his enemies. The globalists hate him. They're trying to sabotage our recovery. That's a recovery of the country's sovereignty, not just prosperity. And the prosperity goes hand in glove with that. And that's why I back Trump so hard. So using class envy, going, oh, look, great year for the rich in 2017. Yeah, J.P. Morgan Chase made record profits. Goldman Sachs did. And despite the fact that they gave 100% of their money to Hillary and none to Trump, he brought in policies that were so good for the country that their profits exploded. But then the globalists and the socialists and the Bernie Sanders go, look at the rich people getting richer. Hey, you don't want that. You want good rich people that bring wealth back to the country, not globalist rich who to a man and a woman were against Trump because they're greedy and want to consolidate and want control. They don't want wealth. They don't want a renaissance. They don't want prosperity here or in Russia or in China or in Mexico or in India or anywhere. Speaking of prosperity, we need your support. Thank you for incredible support during Christmas. I know you got a lot of great products. Everything's still 50% off. All the best-selling items, unless they're 67% off, like colloidal silver. But it's about to sell out. A lot of other products are about to sell out. But the antifungal, anti-yeast, super next-level probiotic, Myco ZX is back in stock, 25% off. Goes great with Floralife, 33% off. But you get the two together at 50% off. That is an incredible near-loss leader deal at $47. Getting those two super high-quality products together is a gift to you in the new year. No reviews yet because that's a brand new special today. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLive.com, or 888-253-3139. Myco ZX Floralife, 50% off and free shipping. Sign up for auto ship, an additional 10% off, and many of the items are loss leaders, but I want you to see how great they are. We're fighting back with the free market and free will. Thanks for shopping with InfoWarsStore.com. You've built this operation along with this great crew, and I salute this crew, and I salute you and our affiliates. Everybody else, God bless you. Owen Schroyer coming up, and Trump's message.
Well, we are back live from Christmas. I hope everybody out there had a great Christmas with loved ones and family and friends. I know that I did. And I hope everybody is recovering from those good times. Sometimes there's a bit of a Christmas hangover here, but one thing that doesn't have a Christmas hangover is the economy. And this is something that trended all of 2017. They think it could trend again in 2018. And there was a poll on Drudge today that has, I think, maybe 250,000 votes right now. It just went up this morning. And the poll was, what is the biggest story of 2017? You've got the economy boom, hurricanes, Las Vegas massacre, Russia probe, sexual misconduct, Trump first year, worldwide terror attacks, North Korea, or other. I went with the Russia probe because this seems to dominate the news cycle every day. However, the people voted, and Trump's first year got over 50% of the vote. So everybody has been following Trump's first year. And if you think about it as an overall story, it is the best. And I think that, you know, the Russia probe kind of goes along with that. Economy boom gets 16%, sexual misconduct gets 11%, Las Vegas massacre gets just under 7%, and so on. And I was thinking about this with the economy being the second biggest one. You know, that's when people go to the voting booth, despite all of the pontification and issues, most people vote for the candidate that they think is going to do the best for them financially, do the best for the economy. I think that obviously had a lot to do with why Trump won. But you know what? In fact, I bet the crew could find this. I bet you the stories that CNN and MSNBC ran a year ago, or just over a year ago, saying Trump is going to crash the economy. I bet you they haven't even erased that. In fact, guys, see if you can find that. Do you remember about a year and a half ago, just over a year ago, the story was how Trump is going to crash the economy. Trump is going to crash the stock markets. Oh, right. And then I've got so much financial news here. It's a joke. Crash the economy? What happened to that? Oh, there's The Economist The economic consequences of Donald Trump. The economic consequences, okay, cutting taxes, stock markets keep hitting records, he's cutting into the government deficit spending. I mean, yeah, these consequences, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh my gosh. It's so bad. So look at this stack of news that I have. Great again. MasterCard reports biggest holiday season ever. Now you can say, is that good or bad? Is that just bad for the credit debt? Well, regardless, people are spending money, consumer confidence is up, and it's good for the economy. You've got signs point to strong U.S. shopping season. That's right. They're saying this was a record Christmas season for shopping. Record. Is that because Christmas is back? Is that because the economy is back? Is it because of both? U.S. department store stocks jump on holiday spending record. Oh, all these financial records, stock records, sales records. Could 2018 surprise the same outsized gains as 2017? That's from CNBC. Oh, I thought that the economy was going to collapse under Trump. No, I guess that didn't happen. World's wealthiest become $1 trillion richer. I'm not sure how to take that. Of course, the rich are going to get richer when there's more money. So that's kind of a given. That's like the people complaining, oh, the rich got the biggest tax. The rich got the biggest tax cuts. Well, the rich pay the most taxes. So, of course, they got the biggest tax cuts. Then you got Social Security beneficiaries hit record, almost 62 million. I take that with a grain of salt because the Social Security program was about to go bankrupt a few years ago, and then they extended it. But this is just an example of government spending that we can't afford. And another example of this is the welfare state. You have unemployment hitting record lows in many departments. You have food stamps usage and welfare usage on the decline, where it was a record high under Obama. Here's a piece put together to just show you the mindset of people that are on food stamps. It's all about dependence, and it's not about working for yourself. It's all about entitlement and not actually taking responsibility. Here's that clip.
I know people, they work 3 jobs, and they live next to somebody who doesn't work at all. And the person who's not working at all and has no intention of working at all is making more money and doing better than the person that's working his and her ass off. And it's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Give me my food stamps.
Do you really want to work, or you just want to get a free check?
I just want to get a free check.
There's a sign behind you that says Waverly Job Center. You have any intention of going in to get a job, or are you just going to get the food stamps?
Not looking for a job.
Why should I have to go work at retail and deal with snobby customers? Why? Why should I have to dare choose to do that?
We called the Department of Children and Families to see what they've been doing to help. DCF says Hillsborough Kids Incorporated has been helping by paying Adams rent, even providing her furniture. Adams says it isn't enough.
Somebody needs to pay for all my children.
Yeah, not me. Not me, though. Somebody needs to pay for it, but not me. Well, they're your kids, man. Exactly, so pay for them.
Honestly,
Ugh.
don't want to work. And I'm not going to.
I wonder if they got drug tested to get these food stamps, if they'd still sign up for them.
Okay, this is not a joke. Just give me my food stamps.
Oh, it's a
That's all
joke.
I'm asking for.
They are not incapacitated in any way, or they don't have a mental or physical disability that's documented and or could be observable.
More counties will join them as federal exemptions to the requirements expire now that unemployment is below 10% for each affected county.
I felt really bad about being on food stamps for a while. They're just for people who really, really need it, I thought, and I'm like living this flippant lifestyle in San Francisco.
Do you think you really, really need it?
Well, yeah, and eventually I just sort of realized that even though I'm 24, like, I still have responsibilities. I still have, like, hopes for my future.
Wait, you have responsibilities, or we have responsibilities to pay for you?
I do really need it.
Are you employed?
I'm confused.
No.
How do you feel about that?
I'm comfortable with it, and I feel like
I hate working.
I don't need to look for one because
Why would I
get
want
a
to work?
check from the government every month.
Do you feel guilty about using your food stamp card when you have $850,000 in the bank?
No, I don't. I'm going by the rules, and if they need to change their rules, they can change their rules. But I don't see I'm doing anything wrong.
How much do you collect in benefits? I have a feeling there's a rule change coming.
Food stamps, $500 in tennis, and I get Medicaid and WIC.
Give me my food stamps.
So let's actually get the numbers here, guys. Food stamp usage hit a record high under Obama. In fact, if you can find a graph, that would be even better, because you've got the graph, you know, it's a line graph, and it's kind of slowly going up. And then Obama gets elected, and it's just like just goes right off the chart, you know. And so you say, well, that's nice. It's nice to help people. You know, they need some help, even if, you know, they ended up in that situation because of themselves. You know, let's just help them out. Well, see, there's a problem with that. A, it sends us into more of a debt. They just had the article up there. Food stamps up over 70% under Obama. If you guys could find a graph, that's really illustrative of what happened. But the real negative consequence, as far as the people are concerned, is now they feel entitled. You see, once you've been granted a lifestyle that allows you to be a bum and get paid and not have to work, and then you develop a thought process and a mental makeup that says, oh, well, why should I have to take responsibility for my kids? The government pays for it. And that's not just rhetoric. That is literally their thought process. That is what they actually believe. So then what happens? Well, they can never become a contributing member of society. They don't want to work. They don't have to work. They just want their entitlements. So there's constant negatives to this, and that's why Trump wants to bring jobs back, so he can get these people back to work. Well, Trump said we're going to make Christmas great again, and then we did. I think a lot of people had a great Christmas. The economy had a great Christmas. And then in a master troll video, you had Benjamin Netanyahu send out a video. I saw it on Twitter. I'm sure he posted it everywhere, where Benjamin Netanyahu wished us a Merry Christmas from the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, just sticking his finger right in the UN's eye. Again, who is the UN to tell Israel where their capital is? I mean, give me a break. Then you have Israel to name train station near Jerusalem's Western Wall after Trump. So there's just some news there. But in the last segment, you heard us talking about these people on welfare and on food stamps. And there was one clip in there where the guy asked the guy's standing in line to get his food stamps. There's a sign right behind him that says now hiring. So the guy says, well, okay, obviously, you know, you're a little short on money or whatever. You're having some financial hardships. That's why you're coming here to get the welfare, the food stamps. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you know, there's there's the sign right behind him. He's like, yeah, you know, they're hiring right behind you. It's the job center right behind you. Get a job. And they all just line up and they get their food stamps and they go right past the job center and they don't get a job. So it just made me think of something. Here in Austin, Texas, Austin is a expansive city right now. I mean, booming. They can't even keep up. They literally can't even keep up the infrastructure because the population is getting so much more dense. They can't build enough skyscrapers. They can't build enough apartments. And one of the things that comes with that is there's a lot of jobs here. A lot of jobs. And sure, a lot of them are going to be in the service industry, but that's kind of where you have to start sometimes to get a footing in the economy and in the job marketplace. They don't want a job. I'm telling you, it is the craziest thing. Here in Austin, you can go through a shopping center and you'll see 3 or 4 businesses or restaurants or whatever now hiring on the sign. And then you leave the shopping center and there's 5 people begging you for money. And look, I'm from St. Louis, where homeless people are actual homeless people. I mean, like they are just, it's bad for them. And you can find that in Austin too. They have a homeless shelter here. But there's homeless people in Austin. They're not even homeless. They just don't want a job. So they get the food stamps, they get the welfare, and then they panhandle on the street, and then they live in an apartment perfectly fine. They're not homeless. They're bums. Bunch of bums, man. I just never understood that lifestyle. But anyway, getting back to some of the news here. Barack Obama has been doing the Trump follow-up tour where Trump goes to India, Obama goes to India. Trump goes to China, Obama goes to China. Trump speaks here, Obama speaks there. He's just following it up, trying to, you know, just get a little shiv right into Trump, whatever he's trying to accomplish. That's how Obama operates, because he loves this country so much, he wants to undermine the president. Of course, he already did that by spying on Trump Tower and by making sure the DOJ and the FBI could work behind the scenes to make sure Trump didn't get elected. Yeah, we'll have more on that later. But Barry Obama sat down with Prince Harry, and Prince Harry is the one that's been in the news because he's about to marry some actress from America. I kind of liked Prince Harry when he was kind of the bad boy and went against the establishment. Now I was questioning it, and now he seems to be full-on liberal. And then he does this interview with Barack Obama. Now, we're going to play a couple of these clips, but this is hilarious to me for multiple reasons. One, because you're going to hear what Obama says, and it's going to be very revealing. But two, for the people watching this on the internet, this is like the weirdest setup I've ever seen for an interview. You would think that Prince Harry and former President Barack Obama could get like a nice studio, like a nice podcast studio or something. They're like sitting in some civic center with some like old microphones. It's the weirdest thing. And it's kind of, to me, illustrative. Like, you are the old guard. Look at that. They can't find anything nicer than that? I'm sorry, but that is, they got a printer in the background. I mean, it's just like a whole awkward deal going on. And I don't even care. Again, it's just like, this was symbolic to me. This is the old guard. Nobody cares about these people's opinions anymore. Prince Harry, sweet, man, you're going to get married to an actress. Oh, wow, it's all over the tabloids. Woo! Oh, Obama, he's got to, see, that's how Obama thinks. He's like, oh, Prince Harry, he's been in the news. I gotta get on this podcast. I got to do something to undermine this country. So let's play the first clip. We got two of these clips. Let's play the first when Harry met Barry clip.
Do I have to speak faster because I'm a slow speaker?
No, not at all.
Okay. But do I need the British accent?
But if you start using long
terrible audio quality,
the answers you're probably going to get the face.
The whole thing is just awkward.
Oh, okay. I don't want to see that face.
But it's as you know, for 40 minutes there'll be 20 minutes package.
I can't even hear what they're saying.
For after Christmas,
the audio is so pathetic.
And we hope to use the whole thing as a podcast afterwards.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm ready when you guys have sound? You guys?
This is so awkward.
We're all good?
Yeah.
Sound? What's going on? What are we talking about? What?
It's fun. I'll interview you if you want.
No, let's keep it this way. I much prefer that.
Okay, so I don't know when Prince Harry became a journalist, but somehow he lands the interview with Obama. Let's go to, by the way, again, that's their actual audio. I mean, that's the awkwardness of this whole thing. Now let's go to the second clip.
We share the same kind of mindset and the outlook on the charitable sector, on foundations, and mainly on the youth of today. The young people of this world are incredibly inspirational.
Well enough to invite him to your wedding.
Well, I don't know about that. That's we haven't put the invite or the guest list.
That's all we want to care about is the wedding.
Who knows whether he's going to be invited?
It's a royal
or not.
wedding.
I don't want to ruin that surprise.
Stop the presses! It's a royal wedding. All right, so that was actually a second interview. There were two things that Obama said here that I found funny. I'm just going to read them to you directly. This is a quote from Obama from the interview. I still care about making sure the United States and the world is a place where kids get a decent education. What did you do for the inner cities in Chicago and their school system? Where people who are willing to work hard are able to find a job that pays a living wage. Now, that's funny because wages went down and unemployment went up under Obama. So I guess he's just a miserable failure. That we're conserving the amazing resources of our planet, that future generations can enjoy the beauty of this place like we did. That's a strange way of putting we're going to shut down America's energy sector, but okay. But here's the real ditty. This is the one that just gave me butterflies inside. Obama says, one of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. What? They can be cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases. See, don't you see? You can't think for yourself. The internet is an open flow of information that may force you to analyze and critically think. You can't do that. Obama and the news is supposed to do that for you. He goes on, the question has to do with how do we harness this technology in a way that allows a multiplicity of voices, allows a diversity of views, but doesn't lead to a balkanization of society and allows ways of finding common ground. And he goes on to talk about how everyone basically used to get their news from 3 sources and how that was better. It was better when people only got their news from 3 sources. That way everybody knew what was going on and there weren't these different realities now that we have because of the internet and because of Twitter. In fact, guys, look for this. In fact, I just remember, look for the clip of Matt Lauer interviewing George Bush. This is one of the greatest moments in television history where Matt Lauer mentioned something about the internet news, getting Trump elected or whatever. And George Bush was like, yeah, back when there were only 3 news outlets, you were actually relevant. And then you can see the face on Matt Lauer. He wasn't locking anyone in his office at this time, so he was just doing an interview. And you can see his face. He's like, oh, it's like a gut blow. President Bush is laughing. He's like, yeah, you used to be relevant before the internet. Because that's the point. They are irrelevant. They have no relevance. Their only relevance was in their ability to control and manipulate information. So now that the internet has caused them to lose that ability, they tell you, you can't think for yourself. It's dangerous to go on the internet and look at INFOWARS. You might see something there you don't know about. I'm sorry, when was the last time any of the major news networks covered WikiLeaks? You wouldn't get any of that. That's why the internet is good. Yeah, there's the clip. So it's amazing to me that they are literally freaking out right now. They wanted net neutrality so they could shut down their competition in the information war. They didn't get it. Hillary would have done it. But now Obama's telling you, stay away from the internet. It might be dangerous. It might cause you to think critically, and then you might have a different opinion from that guy. You can't have that. Owen Schroyer here filling in for Alex. We're going to take some of your calls in the next hour. Roger Stone hosting the 4th hour. But did you know there were actually planned terror attacks over Christmas that got foiled? That's right. Here's our own Leanne McAdoo breaking it down.
There's new information coming out on the would-be domestic terrorist Everett Aaron Jamison. He had planned to carry out a Christmas Day attack at Pier 39 in San Francisco. He was arrested by the authorities after he told the FBI of his plan to carry out this atrocity. He said it would be perfect. The pier would be packed with people. So he's obviously mentally ill, but this guy is a former U.S. Marine who converted to Islam 2 years ago. And Paul Joseph Watson is now reporting that he was also an anti-Trump Antifa supporter. He was recently liking a lot of different Antifa groups on Facebook, Berkeley Antifa, Antifa California, Sacramento, and he was also liking a number of other far-left pages, including Trump Resistance Movement, Things Trump Supporters Say, U.S. Democratic Socialist. He also loved the Young Turks, CNN, BuzzFeed, Al Jazeera, and he was also sympathizing with a number of other pro-Muslim pages. This is interesting because it shows that Jamison's political ideology was kind of a mixture of radical far left thinking and Islam. Now, Watson points out how the media is reporting about the fact that Jamison had recently been liking pro-terrorism content on Facebook, that he was showing his support for that ISIS-inspired Halloween truck attack that took place in New York. But what the media is not telling you is the fact that he's also liking and linking with CNN, BuzzFeed, and these Antifa groups, anti-Trump groups. And as we have reported back in 2015, the ISIS manifesto, Black Flags from Rome, actually encouraged its supporters to go to these far-left protests and link up with these leftist activists because they talk about sharing broadly the same goals as radical Islamists do. European Muslims allying with left-wing activists. How will this happen? Have you ever been at a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel protest? You will see many activists who are not even Muslims who are supportive of what Muslims are calling for, the fall of Zionism. It is most likely here that connections between Muslims and left-wing activists will be made. And a portion from them will realize that protests are not effective and that armed combat is the alternative. So they will start to work together in small cells of groups to fight and sabotage against the financial elite. And so now we're actually starting to see that taking place as well. Back in November, Paul Joseph Watson was tweeting about a recently released FBI field report that Antifa radicals were meeting with Islamic terrorists to obtain weapons and training, and that they have improvised explosives being stored on college campuses. So why is the media failing to talk to you about the would-be terrorists' connections with Antifa? Well, let's not forget that we have just recently had a spate of glowing reports of Antifa. What to wear to smash the state? Is it okay to punch a Nazi in the face? Who are Antifa? They're just these little political whippersnappers that are standing up to fascism. Now, of course, they failed to link their readers to this FBI field report showing that the Antifa is receiving weapons and trainings from ISIS or radical Islamists. They also failed to mention how the activities of Antifa have been officially labeled domestic terrorist activities by the Department of Homeland Security, who is worried about the increasing violence happening within this far left group. Bet your bottom dollar if this wannabe domestic terrorist, Everett Jameson, had been liking Alex Jones and INFOWARS and other right-wing conspiracy websites, that would be front page news. Alex Jones has done it again. He's radicalized another would-be domestic terrorist. But no, they don't want to draw your attention that these people are more aligned with the political ideology that's being spouted off over at places like CNN and the Young Turks and BuzzFeed and the Democratic Socialists of America and ISIS.
Oh, and you won't believe what CNN is doing now. We'll be right back.
President Trump has said he hopes to unify the country. Have you, in the first month, seen him do or say anything that, in your opinion, would be an attempt to heal the wounds of the election?
Well, first of all, there's only been 1 month in office, and so it's he's got 4 years. Secondly, I think you have to take the man for his word that he wants to unify the country, and we'll see whether he's able to do so. It's hard to unify the country, though, with the news media being so split up. When I was president, you mattered a lot more. Mattered a lot more. Mattered a lot.
There's George Bush telling Rat Lauer, this was not Rat Lauer locking him in his desk like he apparently did with, interns or whatever. This is George Bush telling Rat Lauer right to his face, you're irrelevant, bro. Sorry, you're irrelevant. And that's why Obama, in his interview with Prince Harry, was saying, it's too bad that everyone doesn't go to 3 sources for news anymore. We can't control the information. We used to be able to control the information. We could get away with starting wars like the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We could get away with lying about weapons of mass destruction. It was so easy for us then to lie to the American public and then just eat it up because we controlled all the news sources. But now with the internet and InfoWars, well, we don't know what to do. It's out of control. They're actually getting the sources. They're getting the information out there to the people. And the people are thinking for themselves, we need to shut this down. And that's what Hillary would have done had she had gotten in office. Now, this has really been tough for CNN. CNN, in fact, I don't know if CNN had its worst year ever in ratings this year, but it was bad. It was bad. They got eclipsed by MSNBC now. Can you imagine Rachel Maddow beating you in the ratings? A literal cartoon character cutout of Mandark. So she now beats CNN. That's how pathetic CNN is. So what is CNN doing? They're going full TMZ, full paparazzi, and this also shows you how obsessed they are with Donald Trump. Oh, you think CNN hates Trump? They may, but they are obsessed. Don Lemon, CNN would live in Trump's pocket if they could. Don Lemon would live in Trump's underwear. Yeah, I'm going to say it. He would. He would live in Trump's underwear just so he could report on a fart. So here's CNN, a reporter hiding in the bushes to film President Trump playing golf.
Angry tweeting. The president was back at it once again.
So there's the image. This is from CNN. There's someone hiding in a tree. They're literally hiding in a tree to get this footage of Donald Trump playing golf.
He was also going after
talk about sad. No news to report on? No family to celebrate Christmas? You're going to hide out in the bushes. Well, I don't know who that CNN reporter was, but maybe he should go work for TMZ because I think they're actually doing better than CNN now. But folks, the reason why we are competitive, the reason why they freak out because INFOWARS exists is because we're supported by you. We aren't supported by big advertising firms. We don't get any, I mean, Google Ads won't even put us on there anymore. They just shut us down. You know, YouTube tries to demonetize us. So we have to go full independent, and we make products that allows you to support us so that we don't have to rely on anyone else but our audience. And we had great, great Christmas specials. Now we've got some new specials coming up for the new year, including the New Year Gut Pack, which includes 25% off Myco ZX, 33% off Floralife, and 50% off Alpha Power, one of our newest products. But the big special for gut health here that's on InfoWarsStore.com right now is Myco ZX plus Floralife. That's a pack for your gut health. Myco ZX plus Floralife, 50% off. Great combo pack at InfoWarsStore.com. That's Myco ZX plus Floralife, 50% off. And a lot of people are starting to notice now that everyone's having these gut problems, these digestive problems, and probiotics are kind of becoming a household thing now. Well, again, just like DNA Force, just like, you know, Survival Shield X2, we have the groundbreaking products at InfoWarsStore.com. And for gut health, we've got that too. So take advantage of the Myco ZX Floralife combo, 50% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. But all kinds of specials as usual at InfoWarsStore.com. Be sure to support us. You make it all possible. And then when you support us, we continue to expand, and Barack Obama's head continues to spin because he can't control the news. Nothing upsets the globalists more, nothing upsets the deep state more than the fact they cannot control us. That's why they hate us. So go to InfoWarsStore.com, take advantage of all the gut specials, and then still 50% off Brain Force. So, I mean, Brain Force Plus is still 50% off, 67% off Silver Bullet. That's very key right now. There's some illnesses going around, so you're definitely going to want to get some Silver Bullet, folks, let me tell you. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and give out the phone number, and we're going to start aggregating your calls. We'll take them sometime during this hour. 1-877-789-2539. 1-877-789-ALEX. And we will be taking your phone calls in this hour and a little bit into the next hour. Let me just cover some of this news here. You know, I'm a little upset because I've always kind of been a proponent for global warming. I've never really liked winter much. I don't even really like snow. I did have a white Christmas in St. Louis, but snow, I'm not a fan of snow. So I like the fact that I moved down to Austin here and I barely have to put up with any winter. But, boy, this global warming thing is just failing miserably. International Falls, Minnesota drops to record low -37 degrees. Near record cold New Year's Eve expected in New York City. Unforgiving cold snap will engulf eastern two-thirds of the nation throughout New Year's Day. Let's just look at some of these temperatures we're expecting here over the weekend. And so our audience across the states can be like, wow, we're about to get a record low here. Minneapolis is expecting a low of -15. Milwaukee expecting a low of -2. St. Louis expecting a low of -9. I lived in St. Louis for 26 years, and I can only think of 2 other occasions when it was consistently in the negatives. So that is very rare. Oklahoma City, -1 low. Dallas is expecting a low of 11. Chicago, -1. Detroit, 4. Cleveland, 11. Indianapolis, -5. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So I guess that global warming thing isn't working. Rats. That's too bad. I was kind of hoping for it. I kind of wanted beachfront property in St. Louis or Austin or wherever. I mean, everywhere's going to be a beach when global warming kicks in. You know, the amazing thing about it is you have people. The reason why global warming is beyond politics and why people get so angry about it is because it's actually about Earth and it's about survival and it's about humanity, where the liberal media complex with, you know, President Obama, Al Gore, and such other figures have sold a false bill of goods saying that we don't care about the planet, we're killing the planet, coal's killing the planet, mining's killing, it's all killing the planet, it's all global warming. And you say, okay, well, maybe there's some stuff to that. Okay, let's have an open conversation about it. But they don't have an open conversation. They give you fake formulas that you can't even, they just make formulas up. They fabricate the measurements of temperature that they get in some of these locations. But why am I even talking about that? All you have to do, see, this is the craziest thing. They virtue signal and they tug at the heartstrings of these poor soul-sucked humans that fall for fake news. And they say Trump doesn't care about the planet Earth. Republicans don't care about Earth. Can you believe that? That is the most evil thing ever. They don't even care about the planet. They'll kill us all. And you say, well, okay, well, who do you trust? Well, Al Gore has been calling out. Well, wait a second. Let's go back and let's look at Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, from just over 10 years ago. Everything he said is wrong. Everything he said is wrong. And they still give him a platform. They still give him a podium. And he still flops his gums telling you we need to do something about global warming. Oh, but now they ratchet it back. It's not global warming now, it's climate change. It's climate change. Well, yeah. So, climate change deniers. No, we were the ones saying it was climate change while you said it was global warming. So technically, the climate change deniers are now the ones pointing fingers saying you deny climate change. What do you know? Another double standard from the leftist ideology. Shocking. Owen Schroyer filling in for Alex today. I've noticed an interesting trend in the last couple of months. And you may have noticed this too. What happens is, it's like, honestly, the whole Russian collusion thing is the best example of this. But to be more specific, the media reports on something because of political biases and because they want to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they report on something over and over, like the Russian investigation or the Russian collusion. They report on something over and over and over, and then they think it's real. And so now they've basically planted a seed of lies in their own head that they water themselves with misinformation. And so what happens is they get confused and they don't understand what's going on because nothing that's happening in reality is actually matching what they've built up in their own mind because of the confusion that they've essentially instilled in themselves. So in a smaller example, here is the NBC broadcast where they're whining about being confused because they don't understand the tax bill.
The new law limits property tax deduction to just $10,000 in 2018. But homeowners in high tax states and cities who prepay next year's bill before the end of 2017 may save money. May because it depends on a number of factors, something accountant Matt Meyer has had to explain to his Chicago area clients in a deluge of panicked phone calls.
It's ridiculous. Tax season started a month early. You know, usually in the month of December, we're going on vacation, we're taking it easy. Oh my gosh,
I have to work more.
Not this year, Meyer and his team are spending their time explaining the new law.
It means something different for absolutely every single person. A tax bill was supposed to simplify things, and it really hasn't.
Many taxpayers don't realize that the changes won't be a factor in this year's returns. They'll see the full impact come April 2019. And for anyone looking to make those prepayments on property taxes, they'll need to check in with the tax collector in their hometowns. In Montclair, the office will be open on Saturday.
Craig, the takeaway is this. If you are confused, you're actually not alone. Reach out to a professional, get an accountant.
Oh, you're confused.
If you don't have one, have them look at your financial situation and give you some advice and maybe steer clear of that advice at the holiday dinner table. Depends on your family, but
good advice.
Yeah, you know, if you're confused at how Donald Trump won the election, I don't know why. I mean, we just told you Hillary was going to win the whole time. You know, if you're confused why Trump hasn't been brought down for Russian collusion, even though we've been talking about it and there's a special counsel here, if you're confused, well, yeah, I don't know why you're confused on that. It's just because we've been reporting it. Obviously, it's true. Yeah, if you're confused by this tax bill because Trump is actually going to cut taxes then, you know, we're confused too. We don't understand. No, they think that they can have a self-fulfilling prophecy by reporting on a story that doesn't exist. No matter what happens, no matter whether it's positive or negative about Trump, they put their spin on it, and then it's never accurate. So then their audience, of course, is confused because they haven't told their audience anything that's real. And then they're just saying, it's okay to be confused. It's okay. Yeah, they pat him on the head. Oh, you're confused. It's okay. We're confused too. We don't understand it. Make America great again. We don't get it either. We don't get it. Why would we want to make America great? You know, America being great, we don't want that. Now, here's what's not going to be confusing. This is from the Daily Caller today. Nearly 450,000 people fled these 3 deep blue states in 2017. Folks, there is about to be a tax refugee scenario. If you live in New York, Chicago, or Illinois, I have a feeling that they are about to be losing population. Because here's what's happened. I don't understand. I honestly don't understand someone that has a problem with what Donald Trump did for the state and local taxes, except selfish purposes. Which, okay, you don't want to pay as much taxes. I get it, but why should this is a crime to me. How is it that states like New York and Illinois and California get to wantonly spend and spend and spend and have sanctuary cities and have massive welfare states so that they tax their people into oblivion so that they can bring in non-citizens and support them? And so Trump says, look, you have not been paying your fair share of taxes. And that's the truth. If you lived in New York or Illinois or California or one of these states that has a huge state tax, you haven't been paying your fair share. You have been getting a cut. Now you have to pay as much as the rest of us. That's going to suck. And now maybe you're going to rethink those welfare states. Or you're just going to move, which is what we're already seeing happening, and it's going to happen again. So yeah, if you're in New York and you had to pay $12,000 in state and local taxes, you get to write that off of your federal taxes, and then you don't pay them. Well, I'm sorry. That's not fair. Why should I have to pay more because you want to have a sanctuary city in California? Why should I have to pay more because Rahm Emanuel wants to have a sanctuary city in Chicago? So I just don't understand. And I could name names here, but big mainline conservatives are ticked about it. It's not my fault you moved to California and live there. It's not my fault that Governor Moonbeam Brown out there is just raising your tax. He's not even there half the time. So what does he care? He doesn't pay the taxes anyway. So I'm expecting this number to grow. 450,000 fled deep blue states in 2017. I bet that number grows in 2018. And doesn't that just tell you what Democrats do to cities? What Democrats do to states? They destroy them. Look at any inner city in this country that has been run by Democrats for multiple decades. Baltimore, Chicago, St. Louis, name the city in California. What's happening? They're all broke. The inner cities are infested with gangs and violence and drugs. And well, we're going to have gun laws in Chicago. Well, then how come there's a shooting seemingly every weekend? I think there were 5 shootings over Christmas Day weekend in Chicago. So if you want to know the real story here that you already knew, Democrats destroy things. They destroy economies. They destroy cultures. They destroy societies. They destroy the family. They destroy race relations. They destroy the school systems. They destroy everything. That's why they have a D next to their name. It's not Democrat, it's destroy. And now they want to destroy America. Now they want to destroy Trump. Now they want to destroy a tax cut. So I'm expecting the tax refugees to maybe even approach close to 1 million in the year 2018 because these people, and they're probably clueless. They don't have a clue in New York or California or Illinois how they're just getting bent over by their state for these taxes because they're paying for non-citizens and sanctuary cities and welfare states. You mean now that you have to pay for the sanctuary city. You mean now that you have to pay for the non-citizen, now that you have to pay for the welfare state, you don't like it? Now that you have to pay for it, you don't like it? Oh, shocking. I wonder who's felt that way. Anything and everything they think they can attack Trump on, they will. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, if it's a non-existent story. They'll just go after Trump because that's how filled with hate and rage and lies they are. And now you've got this MSNBC, I guess he's a sports editor or commentator or something, saying that Trump is racist because of his comments on the NFL. Here's that clip.
Dave, let me ask you really quickly about some of the accusations that the president's comments have had racial undertones to them. When you think of some of the comments that have been made
just
by
obsessed with race.
And many of them prominent
These
black
people are
athletes,
obsessed
and
with
the
race.
response that the president has given. He's categorically denied that this has anything to do with that race. But
can I just pause it for a second? These people are so obsessed with race. See, they don't get it. Most conservative, I'm not saying racism, but the average conservative, or let's just say Trump, let's just say Donald Trump, when he looks at someone, he's not saying, oh, it's a black person, or it's a Hispanic person, or it's a white person. He just sees a person. These liberals, these people on MSNBC, CNN, these are the people obsessed with race. See, the first thing they think is what color the skin is, and then they immediately make 100 judgments based on that. These are the real racists. You want to tune in to racist news, go to MSNBC. Go back to the clip.
Cited here in the article, it seems that there is a racial undertone.
Race baiting, racist, race, obsessed over race.
It's not a dog whistle, it's an air raid siren. If you look at some of the people in the sports world who've actually been the most critical of Donald Trump.
Pause it right there. Oh, you mean guys that play with a ball for a living? Wow. Guys that dribble a basketball and throw a ball around a yard. I'm shocked that they aren't the most politically savvy people. I mean, wow. I'm not insulting athletes. Plenty of them are very, very brilliant people. I'm just saying it's like, oh my gosh, these athletes, they think this about Trump. Well, no kidding. They play with a ball all day long. Go back.
Popovich, the coach of the Spurs, Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors.
Pause it right there. I'm 100% convinced that the only reason you're hearing these head coaches say this is so that they can still be friends and cater to their athletes. I don't know if they actually believe it. Go back.
From Donald Trump to either of them, they happen to be white. The people who he has responded to,
again, obsessed over race.
Like Colin Kaepernick, Jamel Hill from ESPN, LeVar Ball.
These people are all anti-American.
This focusing.
It has nothing to do with race. That's what they don't get.
Ungrateful people in the sports world who are black. And I just want to point out that this is a very old playbook in this country. It dates back to Jack Johnson, who was condemned by the U.S. Congress. He was the first black heavyweight boxing champion. And this idea that when you focus on black athletes,
that's what they're doing.
White resentment because there's anger about whether it's their salary, their fame, or this idea that they should be grateful for having these opportunities as if they haven't worked for them.
Yeah, pause it real quick. Yeah, that's right. That's right, bud, because I'm sure these basketball players could go make tens of millions of dollars in any other country. No. Yeah, I'm sure all of these football players could go make tens of millions of dollars in any other. No. So the only place where they could actually do what they do and make money is America. Oh, but America's the problem, and it's a race issue. And they should feel entitled to just get all the praise in the world. Why wouldn't you be grateful that you get 3 million people a year? If you're an athlete and you're a baseball player, you get 3 million people a year to come out and watch you. Yeah, I would be grateful. I'm grateful for our audience. Go back to this troll.
In a million people who would have the skill and ability to achieve that plateau. And we can actually build upon the history of previous generations of activist athletes to understand not only how to keep pushing forward sports as a platform for social change, but also keep pushing forward the very idea that you don't sign away.
Well, it used to be for positive change,
or to have a political opinion.
It used to be organic,
as well as how to
it's not organic
backlashes.
Now. It's all forced. It's all force-fed. It's all based on lies. It's all manipulated by Soros and Linda Cockroach Sarsour. I mean, it's just such a joke. Now, so he mentions in there, he's like, oh, well, this is obviously a racial thing because most players in the NFL are black. Most players in the NBA are black. Well, then, I'm sorry then, as a white person, I think they have black privilege. 90% of those leagues are black. Well, it must be black privilege. No, it's because they're better athletes. We don't obsess over skin color here. That's MSNBC. And again, you know, let me just tell you something. People don't know I came from sports media. Now, here's the thing, and I'll actually give LeVar Ball a little credit for something, even though he was very disrespectful and unappreciative of what President Trump did. I'll give him credit for something. If you want to do something about one of the biggest crimes probably in the history of sports, that is universities taking advantage of black students, it's time to shut down the NCAA. Do you realize that the NCAA makes billions and billions of dollars every year and doesn't pay their athletes a dime? Do you realize that probably, I don't know the number, but I would say at least 80% of NCAA rosters for basketball are probably African-American males? They don't get paid. Where's the outcry? Mark Emmert and the NCAA make billions of dollars hand over fist every year. What do the athletes get? Nada. Zip. Zilch. Well, where's the call for something to be done about that? Where's the racism there? How about the NCAA? You want to talk about being racist? How racist is the NCAA basketball? Let me tell you something. The reason why the NCAA is so dirty, I mean, you could read on for days about scandals in the NCAA. Made up classes, kids faking classes, kids getting cars, kids getting payouts. They can't even sell a headband they wore during the game, and that's illegal. But the university's allowed to make millions of dollars off of their labor. Nothing on that, though. Don't call out the NCAA for taking advantage of black people. No, it's only Trump. And then you had this story, which doesn't surprise me. NFL ratings down again over Christmas weekend. And now they're getting beat by the NBA. That's something that you never see. But the one thing about the NBA over Christmas is the NBA used to go like all out for Christmas. They'd wear Christmas jerseys. They'd all be in Christmas colors. It would be a huge thing for Christmas. Well, for some reason this Christmas, the NBA decided to just act like it wasn't about Christmas. So I don't know if there's anything to that. But I'm just wondering when the MSNBC sports editor is going to call out the NCAA for taking advantage of African-American athletes and fleecing them for billions of dollars. I'm just curious if MSNBC will ever do that. Let's squeeze in Jason here before we go to a break. Jason in Florida calling in. Go ahead, Jason. We'll get Jason. I know he's there. Go ahead, Jason.
How you guys doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm just wondering if MSNBC is going to do something about the NCAA taking advantage of black athletes. I'm just curious if they're going to say anything.
Probably not, because, you know, at the end of the day, they get, you know, probably $100,000.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. You're right. The NBC affiliate, the NBC major network profits off the NCAA. Good point.
But, you know, you guys, you know, and I got no problem with you guys. You know, I try to walk the middle of the line here. I like stuff from the right and from the left. You know, I think that's kind of where we all need to migrate to is, you know, there's good stuff from both sides.
Yeah, just, you know, look at information and find out, you know, where your thoughts lie and what's real.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. But, you know, in my mind, you guys are kind of doing the same thing that these other guys do. You're out here bashing the next network. You know, you're promoting your agenda. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong or they're right or wrong by any means. But it's the same thing.
You know what? I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that you said that, Jason. I had a bunch of friends over Christmas that were shocked. They were like, Owen, you've become such an angry, hateful person since you began working for INFOWARS. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm the same happy-go-lucky, cheery guy. I mean, anybody who's met me knows I'm very happy. I'm easy to get along with. I'm not angry and mad. But here's the difference, Jason, because you're actually hitting something here. I get mad when people attack the things that I love. So when they want to abort children, when they want to try to divide this country on lies, yeah, then I get a little mad. So when MSNBC is sitting here race baiting to try to incite a civil war, yeah, I get a little ticked off about that. I mean, that's a natural reaction. Well, just when you thought California couldn't get more batty, they just had to raise the bar, or I guess lower it. So now LGBTQRSWY WTF 109er is now mandatory in California, and you cannot opt your child out of it. Here's them breaking it down on Fox News.
Historians now wrestling with how to teach LGBT history to school children as California becomes the first state to use LGBT.
Excuse me, you left out like 74 different sexual variations, sir.
With this story, William.
Racist Fox.
Hey, Rick, it's controversial because some publishers were not comfortable identifying people as gay. They did not out themselves, or the conclusion lacked evidence. And secondly, these courses are not options.
Did you hear what he just said? Oh my gosh. These people, I honestly, I don't even know how to deal with these people anymore. I don't know if there's any hope for them. They are so obsessed with their agenda. They are so obsessed with their identity politics that they're sitting here just looking at people like, well, maybe he was gay. So let's say he was gay and put him in the history class. Maybe she was gay. Well, yeah, okay, let's say she was gay. They're just, now they are deciding what your sexual orientation is. All right, finish the clip.
Parents cannot opt out.
Oh, my gosh.
Welcome to elementary school, where in California,
elementary school
requires a fair, accurate, inclusive, and respectful treatment of lesbian, gay, bi, and transsexual.
How many kids, just pause it. How many kids in elementary school think that they're gay? Now how many will? Go back to the clip.
I think what's going on here is an effort to politicize history.
We're not saying anybody gay. We're not saying there's an agenda. We're not saying that these people are better than other people. All we're saying is this is another group of Americans, and they face certain prejudices.
The state required publishers like Mark Jarrett to include the sexual preferences of prominent historical figures, among others, activist Jane Addams, writers Emily Dickinson and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and
people are all dead.
James Buchanan, though evidence is inconclusive.
Yeah. I think we should say Buchanan, he never married, he had a very good friend who was living with him.
Gay.
He may have been gay. On the other hand,
he may have been gay, so let's say he's gay.
Being gay was seen as something evil and wrong.
The state approved Jarrett's text for
how many of these people do you think are closet homosexuals?
Stagecoach driver
no, I'm dead
Charlie
serious.
Parkhurst as a woman who identified
that's probably what's
as
driving
man.
this.
Baron von Steuben, who helped Washington at Valley Forge, may have been gay. Poet Walt Whitman was drawn to young men in parks and dance halls, but denied his same-sex preferences in public.
Much of this is speculation.
Good Lord.
It's
yeah, most of this is speculation, so let's make sure that this is mandatory in elementary school. I mean, folks, this is out of control.
Lesbian when referring to astronaut Sally Ride.
Yeah, maybe he was gay. I mean, seriously, how do you cover this? How do you cover something so insane that there's not even a foundation? There's not even a basis. So we're going to be now in California forcing children in elementary school to take LGBTQ WTF Niner history. But think about it. First of all, I don't even think black history is forced to be taught in elementary. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But imagine if someone floated the notion out there that we should make it mandatory for children in high school to learn about white history. Shut it down, racist. How dare you? All right, but let's get the LGBT History Month in there, and let's plug a bunch of names in there. Well, do you know they're gay? No. Oh, okay. So I guess, boy, from the madness in California to the madness in New York, Bill de Blasio likens himself to Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Mahatma Gandhi. And so now Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Mahatma Gandhi are spinning in their graves, probably trying to rip their way out of the coffin right now just to strangle de Blasio. You know, I don't know how de Blasio wins an election. This guy is such a fop. I mean, I guess just, they flood these inner cities with people that are on welfare, tell them to vote to Democrat so they can get their welfare. They flood them with the immigrants. They tell them, keep voting Democrat so we can keep chain migration going. I think that's how they win. Of course, we already know about the voter blocks they bring in with their open borders and immigration policy. But de Blasio, so now basically de Blasio is getting attacked from the left. And he says, well, you know, all of these people that doubt me and my progressive policies need to look at all the struggles that Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and Mahatma Gandhi had. Oh, I remember when Mahatma Gandhi had a staffer get arrested for thousands and thousands of child pornography documents on his computer. No, that didn't happen to Gandhi. No, that was de Blasio. Oh, I remember when Thomas Edison marched in the streets of New York with, I think his name was Oscar Rivera, a terrorist, a known terrorist, arrested, charged terrorist. That was Thomas Edison that marched in the streets with the terrorists. Oh, no. Oh, that was de Blasio too. Wait a second. Henry Ford, though, Henry Ford was the mayor of New York City when there was like 10 terrorist attacks. So that was Henry. Oh, no, that was de Blasio too? Wow. And then he gets reelected. Yeah, I mean, what's crazier, New York or California? Let's go to John, who's calling in from California. My goodness, John. Be sure to sign up for your LGBTQ class because it's mandatory now. What's up, John? Do we have John? Guys, is John there or okay, let's go to Mackenzie in South Carolina. Now, you actually called in about this subject, talking about disinfo from teachers, propaganda. It's actually shocking what teachers will do in these classes with their bias and then pretend that it's centered. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah, I'm a senior right now, and I've been reading all about the whole...
Senior, let's clarify, high school or college?
High school, sorry. Yeah, I'm reading about what I'm probably going to end up going in the head. I'm a black person. I don't think my people are racist. I don't want that. That makes me look bad. I don't want to be associated with that. People don't want to be associated with that. So it's like, what do you do if your teacher teaches you one thing and the reality is a whole different thing altogether?
Well, there was a kid in New York who had a teacher that basically did a whole lesson on white privilege and how black people are oppressed. This individual happened to be of Hispanic descent. And the individual just stood up and was like, excuse me, no. And then cited the numbers like, look at the FBI statistics on crime. Look at the FBI statistics on police encounters with black and white people. Cites the statistics, completely buries the white privilege or the, blacks are the only ones that have it bad with police and says, look, police incidents happen against all races, all colors. This isn't a racist thing. And then what did the teacher do? Kicked him out of class. What did the school do? Suspended him. You can't make this stuff up.
You literally cannot deny the teacher what the teacher says or else you're going to get kicked out.
Even if the teacher's lying to you.
They're going to say the FBI's fake news next. That's what they're going to say.
I mean, what are you seeing as a high school senior? I mean, is it as bad at your school?
I mean, I live in the deep south. I mean, my school, I live just in the most liberal part in Columbia. It's not as bad as it would be in like California, but it still have, teachers who like literal Antifa supporters. Like we have a Teenage Republicans Club, and one of the teachers had her kid like hit one of the members with a paper balloon during a Halloween party, and it was like, go hit the Republican. I'm like, what in the world is this?
Well, yeah, and what do you expect? I didn't experience this until I got into college, but I didn't really realize it at the time. But when you look back, you realize it. What is going to happen to these kids that go into college, specifically white people, but black people as well, when you have a teacher, a white teacher, that is filled with so much white guilt? She hates herself, he hates himself, so then they project that onto the rest of the class, and the weak-minded fall for it. And so then you have all these white people that feel like they're privileged and they've been oppressing black people, so now they're crazy. And then you have the black people that feel like, oh, it's the white man's fault, and everything that happens is the white man's fault, so then they never want to do something to succeed for themselves because they've been victimized. So it's a 360 rotation here, and it's literally all liberal indoctrination. It's all the victim mindset. It's all about, I'm a victim, I've got it bad, so now you have to be a victim. And then if we're all victims and we all have it bad, well, then we'll all just sit here and just play in our misery. I mean, misery loves company after all.
Trump's been in a year. I mean, this is a fair time to average all the stuff he did as president-elect with when he officially became president. He's not God. He can't get it all done. I'm surprised how much he's gotten done. It's been miraculous. And they said he'd never get the tax cuts through, on and on and on. And they played all the race games. There's new statistics out. And it's not that Hispanics that make up something like 70% of immigrants coming to the country are inherently criminal. It's that there is a contingent already fleeing justice, like Americans flee to Mexico and vice versa, that don't have real names, have fake IDs that the Mexican consulate will give them. All these corrupt state governments and local governments will give them IDs, and they are just above the law, and they mainly feed, if you look at the statistics, on other Hispanics. Mexico gets illegal aliens from Latin America and gives them 6 months to a year hard labor and tortures them. That's in the London Guardian, and I'm not defending that. The point is, acting like America is the worst thing on earth is not true, and then the Democrats try to turn Hispanics particularly into a new racial group and make it race-based politics, and that's failing, and that's good news for everybody. So, Jorge Ramos says he's now having the worst time of his life in the U.S. With Donald Trump there, I have never been treated so badly. I've never been insulted so much. We've never been attacked so much. They have never tried to run us out as much as now, Ramos vented in an interview with the Spanish radio network. Ramos, who proclaimed himself is not the enemy, but an opponent of Trump in the interview, complained about the massive blowback he's received since deciding to use his media platform to openly oppose the choice over 62 million Americans who voted in last year's election. Then he complains about social networks. The social networks are 10-to-1 against libertarians, nationalists, and conservatives. But we know most of them are bots. We know it's fake, so we don't care if we get ridiculed. We keep hammering back. But everybody knows the Democrats, the globalists, the liberals are way more threatening, way more hateful, constantly calling for violence. And then when Kate Stanley gets shot in the back and the virtue signaling, mainly white jury lets the guy who'd been deported, 5 times and committed all these crimes, lets him go. Not even manslaughter, not even accidental, because they couldn't signal that it was wrong to shoot her in the back. What about Kate? Well, signs were put up at the university there in San Francisco, and folks pulled them down and said, this is racist. All it said was she had dreams too. Like, she's a human too. She has rights too. But then Nancy Pelosi virtue signals and says illegal migrants embody the best of our nation. Not migrants, not people coming here to work, not people coming here to be Americans, but migrants, which means illegals. And then she goes on to say, they embody the best of our nation's patriotism, hard work, perseverance, Pelosi said of the Dreamers. She added that Congress shouldn't leave them to celebrate the holidays in fear. Oh, really? What about Kate Stanley? Meanwhile, so it was terrorism, attacker who rammed his car into victims upset at mistreatment of Muslims. And of course, you've had hundreds of these attacks the last few years in Russia, Europe, here, all over. And most of the time, they'll never even say it's Islamicist. In fact, in Sweden and in other areas, they won't release the name. They've passed laws and regulations saying it's racist if the guy's name is Habib or Hamad or Ahmed or whatever. It's just incredible.
So we had a caller call in earlier, and the caller made a fair point. Like, you know, in some instances, I feel like maybe you kind of do the same thing that the mainstream media does, attacking your opponents. But what am I supposed to do? See, when Jorge Ramos, what an absolute lying fraud Jorge Ramos is to sit here and be like, oh, I've got it so bad now because bull crap. You're still making millions of dollars. But what does he do? He says it's been harder for us because of Trump now. It's been harder for us. He's virtue signaling to Hispanic and Latino people like, Trump hates you. America hates you now because of Trump. That is an absolute lie. So yes, I get mad when Jorge Ramos consciously lies to people to try to tear this country down. Yeah, I get a little pissed. We're about to be joined by James Wesley Rawls. We're going to talk Bitcoin. We're going to talk geopolitics. But first, folks, it's all possible. We're able to get these guests. We're able to be live 10 hours a day. and multiple broadcasts. You know, we could be live here, and then we could have someone else live somewhere else. And it's all because of your support at InfoWarsStore.com. We have got great specials going at InfoWarsStore.com, especially for gut health right now. During the holidays, you tend to eat maybe more unhealthy than you normally would, or just more in general than you normally would. So sometimes this can lead to indigestion or an uncomfort in your stomach or what have you. And now that people don't get the good bacteria and their guts get overwhelmed with the bad bacteria, you start to see people developing, you know, intolerance to gluten and other things. Well, we have the solution at InfoWarsStore.com. It's the good gut bacteria. It's for good gut health. And you've got the New Year Gut Pack on sale right now. MycoZX by itself, 25% off. FloraLife by itself, 33% off. And then Alpha Power, one of the newest products, is 50% off. Brain Force Plus, 50% off. Silver Bullet, 67% off. But specifically for gut health, the Gut Pack, which is MycoZX and FloraLife. Now, that comes together in a pack. And if you get that pack, you actually get more off than you would if you bought the MycoZX and the FloraLife just by itself. So MycoZX plus FloraLife Gut Care Pack is 50% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. And again, I know you know this, but to those that don't understand, everything is possible because of you. And when I'm talking to people, for example, I go back in town to St. Louis for Christmas, people wonder, it's like, you know, how do you guys get by? How do you guys fund yourself? Well, it's our audience. We don't rely on pharmaceutical companies to pay for ads. We don't rely on fast foods and soda companies and insurance companies and all these. No. We don't go for them. We don't go to them for support. We go to you so that we can remain independent and report news without having to answer to anybody but you. So check out InfoWarsStore.com today and take advantage of the New Year Gut Pack with specials at InfoWarsStore.com. So James Wesley Rawls joins me now, survivalblog.com. James, let's start with some financial stuff. Bitcoin peaked right at about 20,000. It goes back down. Gold was going down the entire time. Now gold is back up. What do you see as a smart investment right now for someone looking to invest? Do you think precious metals? Do you think Bitcoin? What do you think?
Well, I'm definitely an advocate of precious metals, and in particular silver. And for anyone who's considering gold, I'm actually leaning more toward platinum right now. Presently, gold is around, $12.75 an ounce. Platinum is down to $940 an ounce. And traditionally, platinum has sold at a premium above the price of gold. Now it's selling at a discount to gold. So logic dictates that if it's going to return to its historic norms, which I think it will, that the wise place to put your money is platinum, not gold.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's a safe investment, you think, because the way platinum normally goes, it would be a safe investment right now.
Absolutely. But in general, though, I'm more of a proponent of silver than I am either gold or any of the metals in the platinum group. And the reason being, I'm a prepper and I'm geared toward barter in a financial wipeout situation. And there, silver would be much more practical for barter than gold. Gold is simply too compact a form of wealth for practical barter. I guess you could do it with a cold chisel, but it's not very pretty. It's better to have small silver coins that are much more practical for day-to-day purchases.
Now, shifting to Bitcoin, obviously it saw a huge boom and it's kind of come back down to earth. You know, the only thing that's kind of confusing to me about Bitcoin is how practical really is it right now, and how practical would it be, say, a situation breaks out where you have to go into survival mode?
Well, it wouldn't be practical at all in survival mode, because if you don't have access to the internet, you don't have access to Bitcoin. But there is some utility in Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies, and I think that it is wise for people to at least take a small hedged position into the cryptos. And but people just have to do that with both eyes open, not get emotional about it, and be ready to sell or buy at the drop of a hat. Watch the markets closely. It's definitely not a market for someone who is faint of heart, because we're going to see some huge swings in Bitcoin. But I think that in another couple of years, we may see Bitcoin over $50,000.
What about other cryptocurrencies out there? Why is Bitcoin seem to be the one that's taking off the most? Do you have any faith in any other cryptocurrencies?
I think Ethereum is quite good, and Salt, for example. There's a lot of good ones out there. They all use essentially the same Bitcoin blockchain technology, and they all have comparable levels of security. Bitcoin is the most popular simply because it was there first. It doesn't have any real technological superiority to any of the others, and of course, there's no intrinsic value in any of them. So they're all highly speculative, but they do make a good little hedge. And I think the thing to do is to watch the market very carefully, take a small position in either Bitcoin or Ethereum, watch them very carefully, and then watch for news about the other cryptocurrencies. And then on a day when either Bitcoin or Ethereum are quite high, you can shift some of your holdings from Bitcoin to one of the lesser known cryptos immediately following news of a minor panic within that crypto. Say, for example, there's news that the CEO of whatever cryptocurrency corporation has been indicted, or that the CEO has committed suicide, or that.
And shockingly, that type of news comes down the pipeline about once a month, actually.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So just watch very carefully. And as Bitcoin stair steps upward, be ready to diversify out into the other cryptos, but do it on a day when Bitcoin is high and the currency, the crypto that you want to move it into, is relatively low, especially following bad news. And with some of the other cryptos, the swings in market valuation for those coins are even wider than with Bitcoin. So you can take advantage of some short-term bad news. Say, for example, the Securities and Exchange Commission or the IRS says they're going to crack down on whatever currency. That crypto might plummet 50, 60, 70% in one day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the day to buy in and diversify out of Bitcoin. In the long term, your portfolio of cryptos should be spread over at least 3 cryptocurrencies, preferably 4 or 5. And as a long-term hedge, I think that's the safe place to be.
It used to be you would only hear about cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin on alternative news, here at INFOWARS, yourself or Gerald Celente or other people's, blogs and stuff talking about Bitcoin. But now, for the first time I've ever seen, a day doesn't go by where some mainstream news network isn't talking about Bitcoin. Should you buy? Should you sell? What type of impact do you think now that it's entered the fold of mainstream news? What type of impact do you think that has on Bitcoin?
I think it's going to make things even more volatile. And in the long term, though, the number of people in the world who have access to a smartphone versus the number who have taken a hedge position in Bitcoin is minuscule. So I think in the long term, the cryptos are going to do fairly well. But there's a number of factors that could make any of them completely wiped out overnight.
All right, that's James Wesley Rawls, survivalblog.com. We talk some Bitcoin. In the next segment, we're going to talk some geopolitics. Owen Schroyer filling in for Alex today. My guest is James Wesley Rawls. We were just talking Bitcoin and precious metals. We're about to discuss some geopolitics, but first, he wanted to finish a couple key points on Bitcoin. Go ahead, James. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Owen. I just wanted to stress that there's a lot of risks with any of the Bitcoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies. We're in a situation where there's a kind of a rising tide of interest in the cryptos. And the old saying in the financial markets is a rising tide lifts all ships. And that will, I think, be true of the cryptocurrencies. But just keep in mind that there's a lot of risk there. Never have more than 5 or 10% of your net worth in cryptos. And that's even for someone who watches the market very closely. For anyone else, I wouldn't suggest more than 1 or 2% of their net worth. And keep in mind that we live in a society that's driven by envy. And as the cryptocurrencies take off, as I think they will, in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see a lot of hacker interest in the cryptos, because these are going to be people who feel like they missed out, and they're going to be envious, and they're going to want to steal from others. And they're mainly, I think, going to go after the crypto exchanges rather than the currencies themselves. But I think there will also be concerted attacks on individual accounts in attempts to recover passwords. So people should be very, very careful about the passwords they use, or passphrases they use, and where they keep those passphrases. It's also very important to keep redundant copies of your Bitcoin wallet, but keep very close track of where those are physically. And ideally, your laptop that you use for trading Bitcoin should be a spare laptop that you only connect to the internet very infrequently, just for Bitcoin trading. Otherwise, that machine, that device, is kept offline to minimize the vulnerability to hackers. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so that's the expert's take on Bitcoin, and make sure if you're going to invest, you do it wisely as to not put yourself in a hole should anything bad happen. James, I want to move into some geopolitics now. You know, sure. There's so much craziness going on. You've got Japanese newspapers reporting North Korea, Kim Jong-un is trying to put anthrax on a warhead. You've got this story came out of Fox. There's a war coming. Marine Corps general warns U.S. troops. You've got Russia accusing the United States of training former ISIS fighters in Syria. To me, that has John McCain's earmarks all over it. He admitted to doing that. And then you have the U.S. coalition saying less than 1,000 ISIS fighters left in Iraq and Syria. So there seems to be positive movements, but then there also seems to be negative movements in the geopolitics. Of course, you have Israel and Palestine fighting after Trump said Jerusalem was the capital, just like they were before Trump said that, but somehow it's Trump's fault. But I'm just curious, with all of the developments in specifically Syria and then Russia, United States, and Ukraine, where do you see this going right now? Because, you know, if you think that Russia and the United States are colluding, well, then why is the United States arming Ukraine? And why would the United States or members of the deep state here be trying to get ISIS fighters back a foothold in Syria?
Yeah, I do think that Syria is really the wild card out there, even more so than North Korea. There is a huge risk of the Syrian civil war spinning out of control and becoming a regional war or even a world war. And the reason being is that everyone's attention up till now has primarily been upon ISIS and the ISIS surrogates. Now that ISIS is largely out of the picture, I think that the Syrian regime is going to focus its attention on other dissidents inside of Syria, including the Kurds. And once they start committing themselves in the Kurdistan region, I think there's huge potential for this to get out of control. And whether it involves, Russian and American aircraft, for example, or incursions into Turkey, into Iraq, there could be all sorts of things that spin out of control here that are very difficult to predict, and the ramifications of those could be enormous.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, where I think the real wild card here is Syria and not necessarily North Korea. I mean, to me, it's kind of widely known North Korea is a cancer. Communism has failed there. Now, what relationship China has with North Korea and how China uses North Korea, that's a totally different story. But, you know, you take care of North Korea, I don't know how much of a blowback you necessarily get. But you start trying to intervene in Syria, now Russia's going to be pissed. Now Russia is going to try to ally with China. And then, of course, you've got the oil pipeline that they're trying to get through there, too. So that'll just tick off the world even more, United States oil wars. But what is the positive? I mean, Syria is more independent now than they've ever been. Christians are allowed to celebrate Christmas and walk around the streets and praise Jesus without getting slaughtered by ISIS now. I mean, who is it that's trying, I mean, honestly, is it the deep state? Is the United States doing something again that we didn't want them to do, expanding war in Syria under the covers? But I mean, who is this that is trying to stop Syria from being independent?
Well, yeah, it's one of those cui bono kind of questions. And it's difficult to say who the real players really are and what the long-term strategy is. But even in the short term, there's tremendous risk and a lot of unpredictability. So it's wise for folks to plan on possibly a regional war developing in the Middle East and planning accordingly. I think that we could, if that were to happen, we would see gas prices spike up over $4 a gallon. So from a practical standpoint, as a prepper, my advice is if you live in the country and by code you can legally install a fuel storage tank, put in a big diesel tank. And if you use propane to heat your home, replace that tank with a much larger tank, perhaps a 2,000 or even 3,000 gallon tank, because the price swings in the liquid fuels could be huge. That's the practical side of it. On the political side of it, it's very funny that the liberal mass media is still trying to point fingers at the Trump administration and claim collusion with the Russians, whereas as the Mueller investigation goes on, there's more and more evidence that the real collusion actually was between the Clintons and Russia.
Yeah, I mean, that's been totally blown out of the water. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. But real quick, final 30 seconds here. Is Kim Jong-un really crazy enough to try to put anthrax on the head of a warhead, or is that just the Japanese press kind of freaking out right now?
I think that may be more posturing than anything else. What I'm really worried about is not Kim Jong-un's nuclear delivery means by missile, but rather him simply putting a traditional fission bomb inside a Connex and delivering it to a major seaport like Long Beach Harbor.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's not forget, under Obama, we had open borders for 8 years. Who knows who could have snuck in a suitcase bomb thanks to President Obama. That's James Wesley Rawls, survivalblog.com. Thank you so much, James. Well, it doesn't matter that the United States is, in a way, squaring off with Russia right now, funding Ukraine. And then perhaps you have the stories about new ISIS fighters or similar type fighters in Syria with U.S. backing. Should ask John McCain about that. He brags about it. Yet the Russian probe is ongoing. And while nothing has actually landed on Trump, the left continues to obsess over Mueller and Manafort. As this story, Robert Mueller may indict Paul Manafort again. Okay, well, a lot of openness about that headline, to say the least. But again, the cat is already out of the bag, and they can't put it back in. Mueller probe outgrows its witch hunt phase. Well, it was never just a witch hunt. It was a get rid of Trump hunt. That was the whole purpose, take Trump down. And by the way, Betsy Woodruff, she's actually not one of the worst. She goes on MSNBC every once in a while, writes for the Daily Beast. She's kind of level-headed, but she buys the whole Russian collusion thing, so I kind of feel bad for her because that's why she kind of writes these stories. Then the Daily Mail says, Trump tears into garbage golden showers dossier. Do not forget about this. I'm telling you, Donald Trump is still ticked off about this fake dossier. And while every cat and all the genies are getting let out of the bottle from Mueller's end of things, with Rosenstein, with Peter Strzok, with Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr, I mean, we found it. I'm telling you, it's good. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. This was a story from WorldNet Daily. Did the FBI conspire to stop Trump? And they put it as a question. Here, give me the dot cam, guys. I'm going to fix this headline for them. Actually, we're going to go ahead and just cross did out and then cross the question mark out. All right, new headline. The FBI conspired to stop Trump. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is a conspiracy fact. I mean, do I really have to sit here and break this down again? It's like Peter Strzok and James Comey let Hillary Clinton off for her crimes. Then you have Peter Strzok saying, just in case Trump wins, we need to have an insurance plan. Well, what is he saying? He's saying they think they're bigger than the election. He's saying in case Trump wins, we have to get him out of office. And in the meantime, we're going to spy on Trump and his team to look for dirt. We're going to make up a fake dossier so that we can spy on them. Then using that, we're going to say he was colluding with Russia to try to delegitimize his presidency. And where did all of that nonsense originate? The FBI, Obama's DOJ, and Hillary Clinton herself. So it's not, did the FBI conspire to stop Trump? It's, we already know. We have it. The FBI conspired to stop Trump. We already know Hillary Clinton rigged the Democrat primary so she could beat Bernie Sanders. You don't think she tried to rig the election too? Of course she did. This is one of the most wanton criminals in the history of the world, Hillary Clinton. And she has so much dirt in her closet, and all of her cronies are so deep and deeply embedded in criminal behavior, they had to get her in so that they don't end up going to jail. Because that's where they're all going to end up. That's where they're all going to end up. And the cat's out of the bag. We have the names. We know what they did. We know how Comey and Strzok worked together to get Hillary off. We then know how Hillary funded the fake dossier that got moved about. We now know how the DOJ with Bruce Orr was communicating with Obama this entire time, and that Nellie Orr was communicating with God knows who over a ham radio. Peter Strzok says we have to have an insurance policy. So now you're seeing more of this. GOP representative calls for purge of deep state cronies within the FBI. Well, again, I'm fully expecting this to happen before long, but it's pretty easy. You sit down Peter Strzok for a hearing, a testimony. You do it in public. You grill him, and you make him sing like a bird. And then if he doesn't sing and he doesn't want to cooperate, well, you've got a whole investigation going into Trump colluding with Russia where there's nothing. I think at that time you open up an investigation into Peter Strzok and how he was colluding to have an quote-unquote insurance policy in case Trump won. There's your investigation. Can't wait for that to happen, and I get the feeling it's going to happen. All right, let's go back out to the phone lines. Let's start with Matthew calling in from Mississippi. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hey, Owen, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
I got a couple things. Oh, I appreciate you taking my call. I've talked to you a couple of times. The deep state is in panic mode. I want to go over a couple of things. Are you familiar with the gentleman by the name of Cody Snodgrass, the ex-CIA black op operator that's come on the Common Sense show? He went on the Rent show, YouTube channels, of course. He was just on another YouTube channel the other day. He has exposed the deep state like no other. Actually, the event that happened in Cuba is now happening in the United States. Donald Rumsfeld is now being looked at with the 9/11 event. So it's not just on the left, buddy. You're going to have deep state names being exposed when these indictments surface. And they're even talking now about election fraud with the Hillary Clinton debacle in the Q post.
Well, here's what it comes down to. Here's what it comes down to. They can indict and arrest Hillary and Peter Strzok, probably even Obama. They could arrest all of them right now. They already have the evidence. They already know what they did. They could arrest all of them right now. Why aren't they doing it? That's a different question. Go ahead.
I got one more thing, and I know you got other callers. This is, if you go on my YouTube channel, which is Truth, Not Fiction Matters, I just did an interview with Bill Pierce with the American First Media Group. They are currently looking into the Seth Rich murder, okay? I really want you to watch that video, Owen, and email me and give me your opinion. But the deep state is in deep trouble. Believe me. And that gentleman that's called in and talked to Mr. Alex Jones, I'd really like to talk to him. That guy is dead on, Mr. Zach, that's in Morocco. And I really think you guys need to get Cody Snodgrass. Now, he was just involved. Everybody should know this. He was just involved in a head-on collision, and there's a bunch of information coming out that it was an intentional trying to take this gentleman out.
Well, and that, that's a key thing, too, because, we talk about the deep state, and we know what that is. That's people embedded inside the government in very high-powered positions in certain bureaucracies where they're either blackmailed or they're working together with some sort of criminal conspiracy. But we sometimes forget that there's actually good people that are in these bureaucracies, too. There's actually good people that are in the FBI and the DOJ that don't want to see this happen, that are calling it out. And again, the cat is already out of the bag. They're still looking up every corner for some Russian collusion that never existed. We literally have the entire story about how Hillary Clinton tried to steal the election from Bernie Sanders and how Hillary Clinton tried to steal the election from Donald Trump. We got the whole thing. We got the emails. We got the text messages. We got even, they write books about Seth Rich. So we already know it. So you have to ask yourself, what are they waiting for? What is Sessions waiting for? What is President Trump waiting for? Are they waiting for something? Do they think they can hook something else with a little bit of bait? Do they think they can get a bigger fish? Because, again, we already know Bruce Orr, Nancy Orr, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. We know what y'all did. You couldn't let Trump get in because Hillary Clinton was the final hammer to put the nails in the coffin of America. And then Trump got in and he's prying the coffin open. We're climbing out. We're back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer filling in today. Knock out some news here, and then I'll take a couple more calls. This was from the New York Times. Paul Krugman writes, America is not yet lost. Now, the funny thing is, this story would have made sense a year ago, but Paul Krugman decides to write it a year too late. And says, many of us came into 2017 expecting the worst, and in many ways, the worst is what we got. He's right. It was the worst stock market ever. It was the worst unemployment numbers ever. It was the worst for people going on welfare. It was the worst for the housing market. It was the worst for Christmas sales. It was the worst for tax cuts. Wait a second. It was the best for all those things. Huh. Funny. But isn't it amazing? The New York Times publishes a story that is the polar opposite of reality. So you're right. America is not yet lost. You should have written this December 25th, 2016, after Obama tried to kill America. And now in 2017, Trump has actually made the best things. And then Paul Krugman says it's actually the worst. So that's just, a little illustration of a liberal mind, or the New York Times, that doesn't want you to even have a clue. I mean, they want you so stupid that you're so confused when you wake up in the morning that you take anything they tell you as fact. This is just an interesting story that caught my attention. 2017, a year of disaster. There actually were a lot of floods, a lot of hurricanes, and apparently a record number of damages. So is that a sign of, climate change, or is that a sign of something else? Perhaps a non-human element. U.S. police remove white nationalist memorial for shot Australian woman. So see, this is what they do now. This is what they did to Kate Steinle, where if you're white, you're just a white nationalist. If you're white, you can't have a memorial. You can't have a march because you're a white nationalist. Why can't someone just be a person? So they do it in America. Kate Steinle's march, Antifa shows up, protests with guns. They have a memorial in California. The authorities remove the memorial, and then they protest their memorial, and then they throw away pictures of Kate Steinle. Now, compare that to what you get for Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin, and there's the riff right there. And why does that riff exist? Because that's what CNN and MSNBC and Barack Obama want. They want the riff so that they can divide and then demonize anyone who just thinks for themselves. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Asian or Hispanic. If you think for yourself, in fact, now if you think for yourself, you're a bigot and a white nationalist, even if you're black. Seriously, you think I'm making that up? Look at what black conservatives say, and then look at what liberals say. They say that they're white nationalists now. So black people are now white nationalists, according to liberals. Yeah, just like New York Times says 2017 was the worst, even though it was the best. EU planning on Olympic team to weaken national pride. Well, you're not a country, EU, so I'm not sure how that's going to happen. But the Olympics, they'll probably cater to that liberal ideology. Now, I found this a little bit ironic, and I'm going to go to your phone calls. We already knew this was going on, but the story is back in the news. Apple faces lawsuits after saying it slows down aging iPhones. So just any end user could have already told you that that was going on. It was always a theory. Now they've admitted it. But this is so funny. A modern-day liberal will protest anything and everything. But especially if it's a big corporation. I mean, did you see the tax cuts that big corporations are getting? Oh, how dare they? The big corporations are the bad guy. They're trying to screw us over. And then here's a story of the big guy, Apple, literally screwing over its users. Where's the liberal outrage? Where are the protests? Totally silent. You know why? Because CNN and MSNBC and Barack Obama aren't virtue signaling them into protesting. But soon they'll probably virtue signal them into protesting like another women's march or something. So an actual example of the big business that liberals hate, screwing over the end user, silence. A fake news story about a woman that groped someone or got groped 40 years ago, millions of people march. That's how the brainwashing works. That's how the fake news media works. And that's how congruently a class of people is totally dilapidated mentally, goes out into the streets to march for a cause that doesn't even exist. And you say, hey, what are you out here? Screw you, Nazi. Oh, very intellectual. Let's go to Rick calling in from Minnesota. Go ahead, Rick. You're on the air.
How's it going?
It's going good.
You're kind of talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, especially over the holidays. You kind of have brother-in-law season, or in my case, brother season, where you just kind of battle or more else just keep your mouth shut because it's just idiotic.
Yeah, they are so loving and open-minded that you need to shut your mouth because you have a different opinion, yeah.
Yeah, and he's straight from the heart of it. He's San Diego, so, he knows all. But one of the things that I find when I do actually engage people, whether it be Facebook or whatever, is they're talking about they don't want to believe any truth that exists out there, and they'll believe anything that they hear, like you were just saying. They're brainwashed. And I'm always looking for examples where I can kind of put it in their face and have them just dumbfounded, their mouth drops open. One of the things I saw recently, and I made a comment about, and you might have covered this, and if you have, I'm sorry for repeating it, but it had to do with Obamacare and how Trump being in office, I think he's just going to inadvertently cause a lot of good things to happen. And in this case,
well, he intentionally cut the mandate now. So if you don't get Obamacare, you don't have to pay the penalty. So that's going to open up an entirely new marketplace.
Exactly. I mean, anybody that has any common sense can see it, but liberal brainwashing, it's magical. But so he, in his either wisdom or accidental, because I'm not sure he's a big fan of Obamacare, but in just handling it like a businessman, he managed to get it done in half the time, and the advertising was that's exactly it, though. You just hit it on the head, where we don't even need to pontificate on issues. You just hit it on the head. Trump is a successful businessman, and he looks at how he became a success, and he says, the free market and capitalism. So he says, I want to instill that in America because that was successful to me, and that's what made America successful.
And you look at the other side of the coin, you look at Obama. Well, what has Obama done in the private sector? Next to nothing. He's a nothing. He's a nothing. He's a community organizer. So Trump, private sector, businessman, massively successful by his own efforts, says, I want this to be for America. Obama, a nothing, accomplishes nothing, works for the government, a complete fop, says, well, I never did anything to earn any money via my own efforts, so that's how I want America to be. I want everybody to do nothing and then just have the government give them money. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. Which one works? Which one doesn't? The same one that's worked throughout human history. Capitalism. Shocking. Oh, my gosh. Capitalism beats socialism every time? I wish someone would have, had a history book or something on communism. It's crazy.
Yeah, you covered so many different subjects. I was like, God, where do I start? Because that's the one I wanted to talk about, but it's like you went education and you went all over the place, and you're talking about taxes and how, went on your rant about how all these states with huge state taxes get to write it off, and we all get to foot the bill. And I kind of came up with a panacea, too. I think we could solve a lot of the problems, but you got other callers, and so
thank you so much for the call, Rick in Minnesota. I mean, again, I just don't understand. I mean, if you're the one getting destroyed financially by state taxes and you're the one that hasn't been paying your fair share, why is that my fault? I had to pay my full state taxes. You didn't. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. Steve, you got 30 seconds. Close out this hour. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just wanting to say about you and the holidays, and they've seen you was angry and all that. I think watching your platform for years, you and Alex, and the work that you all have done of pointing out the evil with the pedophiles and the deep state, and everybody just wanting to destroy the faith in God and the family, the nation, and the world. Mm-hmm. Just take a big, deep breath when you get angry and upset, because once you get there, I think God's going to be very pleased with the battle that you all raised.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Steve hits it right on the head there. I mean, aside from the politics, God is back in America. President Trump has invoked Jesus Christ back in the White House. Well, if it's not Roger Stone joining us now. Roger Stone is usually my co-host on The War Room, which runs 3 to 6 p.m. Central. Roger will be hosting The War Room today, but Rob Dew will be stepping in, fulfilling my host duties. But Roger, you're about to host the 4th hour. What is on your mind as we come back from Christmas vacation?
Well, what a great, great Christmas it was, Owen, and my very best Christmas wishes for you and the entire InfoWars crew. President certainly ended up on an extraordinary high at the end of this holiday season. The tax cut combined with the systematic exposure of the partisan nature of the witch hunt against him by Robert Mueller, I think, has left the president in extraordinarily strong position. Shockingly, I saw a piece on The Hill today from my old Watergate nemesis, Carl Bernstein. And Carl Bernstein says, no, it's not the FBI that's corrupt, it's Donald Trump that is corrupt. Now, this is, of course, the same Carl Bernstein who, as part of the Woodward-Bernstein duo at the Washington Post, ignored his partner's naval intelligence background, ignored his partner's deep ties to the White House Chief of Staff, General Al Haig, who, very much like General Michael Kelly, is sleepwalking the 37th president to who sleepwalked the 37th president towards the gallows. Same Carl Bernstein, who, of course, ignored the fact that we now know, and he knew then, that the Watergate special prosecutors were communicating with Judge John Sirica in the Watergate trial, which was both illegally inappropriate and would have tainted that trial. Had we known that at the time and known that the trial of the Watergate burglars and their appeal was fixed in advance, well, there would have been no Watergate. There would have been no Nixon resignation. But today, Carl Bernstein ignores the extraordinary evidence that we saw last week. Owen, the tweets, the emails, the campaign contributions from Mueller's quizzlings to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
The text messages.
Quite extraordinary. Bernstein was blind then. He appears to be blind today.
But wait a second, Roger. Wait a second, Roger. The story says, guys, pull the story back up on the Hill, because I need to make sure that I have this headline correct. The headline is, Carl Bernstein, FBI isn't tainted, Trump's presidency is. I mean, Roger, it was obviously Trump that covered up the JFK assassination. So it's obviously Trump that's tainted. Trump was the one that covered up the truth about the JFK assassination. That was Trump. Oh, wait a second. That was the FBI, and Trump released those documents. Oh, I'm sorry, Carl Bernstein. You're just another libtard.
Well, this is extraordinary. The FBI financed and promulgated the phony Trump dossier, which was used incredibly as the rationale for the FISA court warrants that authorized the surveillance of Donald J. Trump and his campaign apparatus. This makes Watergate pale in comparison. Using the state apparatus, using the taxpayer-financed surveillance capabilities of the U.S. government to spy on one's political opponents, well, that's what Watergate was supposedly all about, but at least the Nixon operation used misguided outside forces. In this case, we have perverted the government for an illegal operation. You're on the Alex Jones Show. I'm with my colleague Owen Schroyer, and we will be right back.
It's simply incredible to me that people will publish stories that are 100% wrong. And not just the stories they publish being wrong. The truth is the exact opposite of what they're saying. I mean, this has always been the way with CNN and MSNBC. If they say one thing on those channels, you just assume the opposite is true. But it's just like this. Paul Krugman, New York Times, says 2017 was the worst for America, even though it was like the best. Carl Bernstein says Trump is tainted, not the FBI. It was the FBI that covered up the assassination of JFK. President Trump was the one that released the documents. So these people present to you news and stories that is not just completely inaccurate. It is, in fact, the exact opposite of the truth. So here is the libtard Carl Bernstein saying Trump is tainted, not the FBI, even though we have all the evidence to the contrary.
Everybody else is the issue here, not Donald Trump and his actions or those around him. The key word in all of this that he keeps using is tainted. There's only one institution that really has been tainted through these months, and that is the Trump presidency. It's tainted by the president's lies, by his disrespect for American institutions operating under the law, with traditional American democracy and the instruments thereof. He's contemptuous of those instruments. And what we're seeing in these constant attacks, which are undermining, indeed, confidence in the legitimate institutions of our government, which are trying to do their job. If the president is as confident as he says that this investigation is going to end very soon, and with him being exonerated, he ought to welcome all this instead of attacking constantly. He's doing a grave disservice to our democracy. And the really awful thing is that Republicans, particularly in Congress, but also an awful lot of the Republican, quote, establishment and voters are going along and enabling him to make these claims and make everything the issue. But what really happened here, and has our democracy been, and our elections been undermined with some cooperation from the Trump campaign, from members of his family, from the president himself? The answer might be no. He ought to welcome the answer if indeed things are as he claims.
What an unabashed liar. Roger, if I was on that set, it would take every ounce of my integrity not to sock him right in the face.
You know, the funny thing, Owen, is I know Carl Bernstein, and I kind of like him. I mean, he's actually a pretty decent guy to have a beer with and kind of joke around. He's not a bad guy. But in this case, I'm really disappointed because Bernstein in the past has been a guy who has been willing to go where the facts lead him. He wrote a terrific piece for Rolling Stone some 15 years ago about the Central Intelligences co-opting and getting into using mainstream media and paying mainstream media reporters. In this case, he seems to be antithetical to the facts. He should where the facts lead, and the facts show that the FBI has very, very sadly been politicized, and their mission has been corrupted. So disappointment rather than anger at Carl Bernstein, because frankly, he knows better. The old Carl Bernstein would have been writing about the corruption of the FBI, not helping poo-poo it and cover it up.
You know, I'm glad that you brought me back down to earth by saying that, Roger, because, you know, when we talk about these political things and people just spout out lies, I mean, again, this is why people are like, well, why do you get so mad? They're lying. I mean, this guy's just lying, and then people actually believe it. I mean, why do you think, let me ask you, you know Carl, he's a nice guy, you guys go out and have a good time. I believe that that's true. We're all human at the end of this. So what motivates him to, I mean, does he really believe what he's saying?
Well, it has to be, at this point in his career, a political point of view. But one cannot look at the stunning evidence that we saw regarding Peter Strzok, regarding the corruption of the FBI, and just write it off as meaningless. Look, we saw this theme from Brian Stelter last week when he said Trump is undermining law enforcement and he's undermining respect, for our law enforcement institutions. No. What he's doing is criticizing people who have burrowed their way into law enforcement and have corrupted that process. There's a very substantial difference. They're trying to cloak themselves in the credibility of the FBI and the credibility of the CIA. You see John Brennan, the former CIA director, trying to do this constantly. But the sad fact is those institutions have been politicized, and they no longer stand for the rule of law. They have been engaged in a massive corruption of our electoral process and the cover-up of massive crimes. It's very, very sad, in my opinion. You know, the other thing on my mind today is the fact that I predicted last week on the Alex Jones Show and on the War Room that the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, will seek to get the upper hand again in his epic battle to take down the president through the indictment of a member of the president's immediate family, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Now, we know that General Mike Flynn, who I believe is a great patriot and who I know for a fact continues to be 100% supportive of the Trump administration and this president and his mission, has testified that a senior member of the presidential transition instructed him to reach out to the Russian ambassador to set up a meeting. Let me stress that the action by General Flynn in reaching out to the ambassador is entirely legal, is within the scope of General Flynn's responsibilities as the national security advisor. Now, if that was not the president who gave that instruction, but a senior member of the presidential transition, the only senior member of the transition who would have that authority would be Mr. Kushner. Now, whether Mr. Kushner has dissembled about that or whether he's been tricked into denying it in the many hours of interrogation that he's had from both the FBI and the Senate and House committees, we don't know. But I could see a scenario in which Mueller seeks to get the upper hand again by bringing a process indictment against Kushner as he had against General Flynn. To me, this would be the perfect opportunity now, while the president is on a political high, to pardon both General Flynn, a great patriot, and his son-in-law, who in this case I think has done nothing wrong, and put Mueller back on his heels. That is both my prediction and my wish. Earlier today, the president's, General Flynn's brother, Joseph Flynn, called for the president to pardon Michael Flynn, again, a great patriot. So I say, from Joe Flynn's mouth to God's ear.
Well, and I do believe that there was a moment where Trump was addressing members of the press where he kind of floated the idea out there about thinking about pardoning Mike Flynn. He obviously didn't want to commit to it. But, you know, the reason why they're so upset with President Trump is The alphabet bureaucracies don't like the fact that they can't put out misinformation and lies without Trump addressing it on Twitter. They don't like that. They like to be able to lie to the public and not have the president set the record straight. So they don't like that. Then on the other end of it, in the media, they don't like the fact that Trump is pushing back. I think that that's honestly what bothers the Carl Bernsteins in the media, the fact that they'll say something or report something inaccurate, and then Trump goes on Twitter or does a presser and he says, no, that's fake news. No, you're fake news. You're fake news, Jim Acosta. I think that they don't want President Trump to push back. They just want to be bullies without any pushback.
That's why it's absolutely essential the president never give up his Twitter feed and never be talked out of not tweeting from the heart. I'm Roger Stone with my co-host Owen Schroyer. We're on the Alex Jones Show, and we'll be right back.
This is the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer, Roger Stone with you, breaking through the lies and misinformation of the mainstream media, which has never been more apparent than it is, well, than it was in 2017, and that it is now. All you have to do is look at the clear bias in the media coverage of Trump. You can compare that to presidents in the past. Oh, wait, no, you can't, because there's never been anything like it. And, you know, that's a story, Roger, that kind of gets lost in translation. I mean, you look at the numbers. There's never been a president get as much media coverage. It's not even close. In fact, the negative coverage of President Trump probably doubles any coverage of any prior president.
No, you're exactly right, Owen. I think these things have to be seen in some context. Let's look at some of the things that are said by our previous presidents. Andrew Jackson. He was vulgar. He was crude. He was outrageous. He was a brawler, considered today one of our greatest presidents. Theodore Roosevelt. He was an egomaniac. He was a braggart. He was a lightweight. He was outrageous. Oops. Once again, one of our greatest presidents. See, Donald Trump doesn't fit the mold of the career politician. He's not a guy with a wet finger in the wind trying to find out what to say in order to be popular. He speaks from the heart. He speaks from the gut. He speaks from instinct. He doesn't take polls to find out what he should and should not be saying. And so far, he's going to be one of our most successful presidents. We've already seen a record stock market, unemployment at all-time lows, the housing market in one of the greatest booms of all time. The libtards don't want to admit it, but he's on his way to an easy re-election. And those who are wringing their hands about the 2018 elections are way premature. The 2018 elections are not tomorrow. They're well over a year from now. And I predict a Republican triumph if the president sticks to his current agenda. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we have extended all of the New Year's specials at the INFOWARS store. And these will run through the end of the year with free shipping. You can put your best foot forward and spend less and achieve all of your New Year's resolutions with some of these incredible products. We're talking about Myco ZX back in stock now at 25% off. Super Male Vitality at 50% off. Silver Bullet, I think the very best silver colloidal product out there at 67% off. My all-time favorite, Brain Force Plus. Get a case of this and give it to your favorite libtard. They need it more than we do. This stuff, for me, I don't know about you, but for me, it gives me mental clarity, gives me mental energy, helps me work another 5-6 hours a day. Brain Force Plus at an extraordinary 50% off now. Alpha Power, which I really think melds the best of the old and the new, some of the most ancient and effective Chinese herbs, melded with some of the very best cutting-edge natural substances today for a formula that gives you peak performance, both physical and mental. Alpha Force at 50% off. So these are just some of the extraordinary sales now. Alex Jones has decided to extend these incredible prices through the end of the year. Folks, help yourself. Help us pay for the War Room and the incredible expansion we're having here at INFOWARS by going to the INFOWARS store now. You can help us, and you can help the fight for freedom and truth by doing your shopping at the INFOWARS store today.
You know,
Owen, go ahead.
It's funny, Roger, because I was just thinking the other day, I ran out of hand soap, and I was like, oh, I got to go to the store and get new hand soap. And I was like, wait a second, we sell hand soap. We sell household items now. So when you think about hand soap and shampoo when you run out, think InfoWarsStore.com instead of going to the grocery store. That's another way you can support us. It's something that we don't talk about enough.
Well, and the auto ship function I really found to be excellent because, frankly, I'm so busy that I forget to reorder. And I got caught short without brain force on a long trip where I had to give a couple of speeches, and frankly, it was difficult. So I really like the auto ship function. That way, you're never without these products, and frankly, using them consistently will give you the very best result. So I really urge folks to use the auto ship function on the INFOWARS store site. Oh, and I gave an interview to C-SPAN last Friday, which ran the Sunday in their Newsmakers program, where I reiterated the claims that I've made here on the Alex Jones Show, that I firmly believe that the two-party duopoly that have run this country into the ground, the elites of both parties, if they are unsuccessful in undermining and removing this president through the special counsel process of Robert the Executioner Mueller, they will move to a 25th Amendment strategy. Now, I admit that that may be hard to believe today because the president ended the year, or is ending the year, on such an incredible high, having jammed through his historic tax cuts, which I believe will turbocharge this economy. And with the partisanship and the naked mentality of Mueller's hit squad now revealed for all Americans to see. Do not underestimate the deep enmity that the ruling elite who have run this country into the ground have for this president and his politics. I believe they will be back on his throat like a pack of hyenas in 2018. And I do believe that the president will persevere. Once again, I call for the appointment of a special prosecutor in the Uranium One matter. Far more effective than firing Mueller and allowing the mainstream media to whip up a hysteria about a cover-up, the president should demand that the Attorney General appoint a special prosecutor in the matter of Uranium One. That would, once again, bring Mr. Mueller, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, and Mr. Rosenstein under federal investigation for their own crimes in the cover-up of Uranium One and the sale of 20% of our strategic uranium reserves to a company controlled by the Kremlin. You talk about Russian collusion, folks, there it is. Hillary Clinton and her husband and the entire Obama Justice Department up to their hips in collusion with the Russians to steal that important commodity.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if they want to push this narrative on through the midterms, Roger, because what we're seeing right now is that the GOP is seeing record funding. So the GOP is getting all this funding. So does that mean they're going to support the candidates that aren't career politicians that want to go along with Trump's agenda? Or are they just going to put in a bunch of rhinos and try to bury those that want to go along with Trump's agenda? That's going to be an interesting story to watch. But if they continue to push the Russian narrative and a new Congress gets in that's behind Trump, well, look out, Hillary Clinton.
Welcome back. I'm your co-host, Roger Stone, here sitting in for the great Alex Jones with my colleague, Owen Schroyer. Normally, you can see us both on the War Room, which I usually join at 5 o'clock Eastern. Today, we'll go right into the War Room, but sitting in for Owen today will be my colleague, Rob Dew. You know, Owen, nothing I have ever done on InfoWars has had the reaction that we got last week from our visit to a gun range there in Austin, Texas, where I had the privilege of shooting some of the most extraordinary firearms that I have ever seen. The libtards' brains literally exploded into a pink mist over this, with claims, falsely, that we were in some way advocating violence or insurrection. Just the opposite is true. We do not advocate either. We will, however, defend our families. We will defend our Constitution. It's, as you know, it's Antifa who advocates violence. It's Antifa who wears black masks on their faces. We believe in peace. We believe in law and order, but we are not patsies. Now, last night, I took my family to a local Italian eatery here in the Fort Lauderdale area, where I was confronted by punks telling me that I was the most despicable human being on the face of the planet. This happens virtually every single day when libtards feel that they can invade your personal space. On my flight from Austin to New York City the other day, I was trying to doze only to be awoken with somebody who had a camera right in my face, once again insisting that I was a despicable human being because I stand up for our president and for our Constitution, and I speak out against the deep state and their efforts to convert this country to a non-democratic gulag. No, I'm not going to be silenced. I'm not going to be threatened. And I'm not going to be intimidated by your threats. But once again, we are not the ones who advocate violence. We renounce violence. I'm proud of my friendship with this president. I'm proud to stand with him, and I will continue to speak out against the illegitimate efforts to take him out, either through some illicit, trumped-up process charge by Mr. Mueller or by a deep state takedown under the 25th Amendment.
Roger, I'm actually glad that you told that story because I want to provide an example on the other end of the spectrum. I went out for dinner last night, and a group of young gentlemen came up to me who were Trump supporters and INFOWARS fans, and shockingly, unlike your experience, they were polite, they were kind, they shook my hand, we had a friendly conversation, and instead of just shoving a camera in my face, they asked if they could take a picture with me, and I obliged. So that's amazing, the difference between the anti-Trumpers and the Trumpers. I mean, all you have to do is just look at their character, look at how they treat the fellow human being, and you can see who the real scum is.
No, you're absolutely right, Owen. I find it to be about a 50-50 experience. In other words, when I went to Home Slice, one of my favorite spots in Austin the other day for a quick pizza in between breaks on INFOWARS, I was approached by a group of folks, mixed men and women, young people who are big INFOWARS fans, wanted a selfie. They were polite. They were complimentary. It was a great experience. They said, tell Alex Jones how much we love him. Tell Owen Schroyer how much we love him. No, we've got our fans out there. There's no question. I find it that it's geographic. If you're in New York City, you're going to find more loudmouths and more scumbags. If you're in Austin, Texas, other parts of Texas, you're going to find more patriots. But there's no excuse for lack of manners. There's no excuse for the rudeness and the name-calling. But as I have said, as one of Stone's rules, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And it is better to be infamous than never be famous at all.
Well, you know, Roger, the thing that doesn't get talked about enough is just by publicly supporting Trump or publicly voicing your conservative political ideologies, you're hated, you're scorned, you're dehumanized. And I don't think people understand that. I didn't get into political media so that people would hate me. I didn't get into political media so that people would be looking out for me and to try to bring me down. No, I got into it because I have political ideas and I have conservative beliefs. But just like you said, when you run into, you know, conservatives or fans of ours, it's always a love fest. We're always getting along. Everyone's smiling, having a great conversation. When you run into a libtard or Antifa or a Trump hater, it's always hate. They're always cursing. They're angry. They're violent. And so this is what I don't understand. I was telling this story earlier. I don't know if you heard it, but I was back in town in St. Louis over Christmas break, and I had some friends that I hadn't seen in a long, long time. But they know what I do now, and they're like, man, Owen, what happened to you? You used to be so happy. You used to be so cool. You used to be smiling and friendly and nice to everyone. Now you're just this hateful fearmonger full of anger and rage. I'm like, wait a second. No, I'm not. I'm the same guy I've always been. They're the ones that are filled with hate and rage. And this is the key that I discovered, Roger. And this is what they don't understand. I have such a capacity for love, and I love fellow humans so much that when I see my fellow human under attack, whether it be the poison in the water, whether it be with abortion, whether it be with the vaccines, see, now you're attacking something I love. That's an instinct to get fired up about that. That doesn't mean we're hateful or angry. That means we have a defense of something we love. We're not driven by hate. We're driven by love. They're genuinely driven by hate of Donald Trump. They're driven by hate of Alex Jones, and they're driven by hate of our political ideologies. The left, the Democrat Party, has become the biggest hate group in the history of this country.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I must tell you, prior to 2016, I had many, many friends who were Democrats, many professional Democrats, many friends in the media who I did not see eye to eye with. And in all cases, those relations were respectful and cordial. I had friends at CNN. I got along pretty well with Anderson Cooper and Brian Stelter and others there. But I've seen the deterioration of that, and it's not because of us. It's because of them. There is a new militancy, a new outrage on the left where they just cannot accept the results of the last election. Look, this is really, really simple. The election's over. You lost. We put up with 8 years of Barack Obama. I didn't like the Obama presidency. I didn't like the Obama policies, but I realized the elections had been taken and were over and that we lost, probably because we nominated two extraordinarily weak candidates. What you can't fathom today is their inability to accept the results of the last election. I saw Hillary Clinton's photo today. She looks like she's gained about 50 pounds since the election. Looks to me like she can't accept the results either, Owen.
Yeah, and she's got, a boot on her foot walking around. People have rumored that might be some ankle bracelet, because she's, on house arrest or she can't leave the country or whatever. I don't know if any of that's true, but, she was never healthy, Roger. I mean, she's been sickly ever since this for years now. I mean, she's got holes in her tongue. She can't stop coughing. She coughs up little green goblins into a cup. She falls over and faints. She looks like, the balloons in the sky. So, I mean, yeah, Hillary Clinton, that's what it is. You're always attracted to something similar to you. Hillary Clinton is a sick, corrupt individual. So, of course, all the sick, corrupt individuals in society would gravitate towards Hillary Clinton. It actually makes sense.
We're here on the Alex Jones Show with my colleague, Owen Schroyer. And one thing Owen and I are going to do together in the new year is to bring more and more young, dynamic, conservative congressional candidates to the public consciousness. It was Owen Schroyer who discovered hard-charging Omar Navarro challenging Maxine Waters in California's 39th district. We had Carla Spalding challenging Deborah Wasserman Schultz in the Fort Lauderdale district in Florida. And we are going to be interviewing Joy Villa, who is, I think, best known as the singer-entertainer who wore a Make America Great dress to the Grammys. Now, she has emerged as one of the most effective and articulate proponents of this president and his reform agenda. She has announced her intention to seek a congressional seat in the state of Florida. I expect an announcement from her early next year. But she was in the news this past week because she has filed a complaint with the D.C. Metropolitan Police claiming that former campaign manager for Donald Trump, Corey Lewandowski, sexually assaulted her, specifically slapping her on the rump at a public party at the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. As I understand the media reports, an inebriated Lewandowski approached her, was introduced by a mutual friend, whereupon he smacked her on the bottom. She asked him to stop, and then he smacked her again. Now, we have a clip of Mr. Lewandowski and his response, and in all fairness, let's roll that so that he can have his say here as well.
Singer Joy Villa, a Trump supporter, filed a sexual assault complaint against former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Villa claims she was assaulted at a party at the Trump International Hotel in Washington last month. Joining us now is Corey Lewandowski. And Corey, of course, I'd like to have your response to Villa's accusations.
Well, Charles, I think as someone who's been through this, you understand that there is a due process, and there is a process which they will go through to determine a person's innocence, which I think you've been through, and you understand it and you respect it.
Yeah, I think everyone understands and respects it in this, but a lot of people are wondering why someone who is so close to President Trump as you are, someone who's been rooting for President Trump like Joy has, motivate her. What do you think is motivating her with these accusations where she says she has at least 2 witnesses?
You know, Charles, that's a question for her. I'm not here to speak for Joy. What I am here to do is to speak for me. And what I am going to do is to let the process play forward, just as you did when you're accused of sexual harassment in your own case.
There you have it, Corey Lewandowski's response. Now, I think it is important to know that Joy Villa has 2 witnesses, and it is my understanding that the D.C. Metropolitan Police have obtained the security camera footage from that night at the Trump Hotel. So, indeed, let's let the process go forward. I'm a believer in due process. But I must say, I believe Joy Villa. I have found her to be an articulate and a vivacious a proponent of the president's agenda. I think that her support for the president is most valuable, and we'll be covering both sides of this story. Owen?
Well, I got a couple things to say here. Let me just start with the sexual assault allegations. Now, I'm not talking about this individual case. I'm just saying in general. Is slapping someone on the butt once really sexual assault? I mean, is this really something that needs to go to court? I guess you can ask that women that. But if a woman slapped me on the butt a couple times because she was drunk, I wouldn't be thinking about a lawsuit. You've got stories where women are saying, Trump asked me for my phone number. So, I mean, we're really skating on a thin line here, I think, with what is sexual assault. And I think we need to remember that there are actual victims out there that, you know, deal with penetration and rape, like Bill Clinton's victims. So, you know, before you start throwing around sexual assault because someone, you know, patted you on the butt or whatever, or asked for a phone number, I think we need to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves here. Again, I'm not necessarily commenting on that one story, just commenting overall in general. But then, Roger, oh my gosh, you want to talk about bombshell? You're telling me that the D.C. Metropolitan Police are reviewing footage of this alleged sexual assault? Is that what you said?
That's my understanding now.
Okay, but real quick, I just got to pause you right there. So the D.C. the D.C. Metropolitan Police are reviewing footage of Corey Lewandowski allegedly slapping Joy Villa's butt, yet nothing on Seth Rich. I can't get any footage on Seth Rich. I can't get any investigation into Seth Rich. We get nothing on Seth Rich, and we have police looking at footage of Joy Villa and Corey Lewandowski. Boy, if that doesn't show you how backwards and twisted justice is right now, I don't know what does. Sorry, Roger, this is just crazy.
Well, but in this case, Ms. Villa has filed a formal complaint with the D.C. police. Oh, and there's a huge difference between somebody smacking another person and asking for a telephone number. And yes, under the laws of the District of Columbia, that does amount to sexual battery, to sexual assault. So let's let the process carry through here. What I do object to is this idea that, for example, because Leanne Tweeden was once a Playboy model, she cannot be sexually harassed or assaulted, or that because there's a photo of Joy Villa that is somewhat sexy that she cannot be sexually assaulted. I firmly disagree. Let's let the process take its course. But photos of her, like we're showing now, have nothing to do with what transpired. Because someone is depicted in a sexy attire does not mean that they cannot be sexually assaulted. They most definitely can.
And I'm just glad, I mean, again, you know, my opinions are my opinions. I would hope that from now on, at least, you know, when people are going to make these allegations, if you're seriously going to make these allegations, I mean, at least follow through. You know what I'm saying? If this is going to happen, at least follow through. So 30 years down the road, if someone wants to, you know, run for office or something, all of a sudden, oh, he assaulted me 30 years ago. He can't run for office now. So, I mean, at least that's one thing. I mean, if you think you're sexually assaulted, at least, you know, move forward with some charges. So at least that's one thing.
Well, and she has done that, which is the appropriate thing to do here. Look, I have been a critic of Corey Lewandowski. That is no secret. This is not the first time he's been accused of manhandling a woman inappropriately. There was an entire period in which the campaign of Donald Trump got off message because of his alleged roughing up a reporter, a woman reporter, during the campaign while at a campaign appearance here in Florida. So there's a pattern here that I find disturbing. Let's see where the process goes, Owen.
Well, and again, I think it's nuts. I saw no stories of the D.C. police looking at any camera footage the night of Seth Rich murder. I know it's a totally different story and everything. That, to me, is just like, whoa. Okay, so who knows if they ever saw any of that footage, but apparently investigations into Seth Rich may or may not be getting a little more interest. Well, we've got just over a couple minutes left here, or just over a minute and a half left here. Roger, before you go over to the war room, what are you guys going to be covering over there today?
Well, I think we're going to be talking quite a bit about the General Flynn situation and the fact that his brother, Joseph, has made a very, I think, strong appeal for a pardon. Now is the time of year that the president can mete out mercy and has the full authority for a pardon. And I think a pardon for General Flynn would be appropriate. He has clearly been entrapped. Let's be very clear. First, they illegally surveilled him to learn everything he was doing. Then I imagine they came up with a list of questions, and then they burst into his office at 8 o'clock in the morning when he had no attorney present, and the good general spoke to them openly. They probably went through a list of questions until they found someplace where he contradicted himself. To me, the whole process is phony. His confession is phony, and he's being crucified unfairly. I hope with all my heart that the president will consider a pardon for General Flynn. Like you, I was encouraged the other day when asked about this, and the president said, well, let's see. To me, that was leaving the door open.
And at least, you know, he's considering it or has thought about it. So I would completely agree. General Flynn wasn't trapped. He does not belong. He doesn't, you know, what's been charged against him is just made up. It's ludicrous. They made up the entire investigation. Roger Stone hops over to the war room. Be sure to catch him there. Infowars.com/show, InfoWarsStore.com to support us. You stay classy, InfoWarriors.